Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Juicecast. Today we're going to be talking about Crisis Core Reunion. If you've never been to the Juicecast or don't know what we're about, we're pretty much just analyze each aspect of the game and give our own subjective viewpoints of said game, see if we can agree on anything, see what we disagree on, etc., etc. If this is your first time, again, we've done other Final Fantasies and Sonic games, and we're pretty much covering everything, so happy to see you here. With me today, I have ST. ST is a Zelda content creator, first and foremost, who's working on a bunch of scripts about Link in the various games. And King K does retrospectives over on YouTube. Most recent one, I believe, being on Sonic Frontiers, and then also just speaking on the games that he played in 2022. So thank you both for being here.
Yeah. Hello, yep.
And
I'll happy to be.
And I'll have links for both of them in the descriptions below. I am a game and character analyst, but mostly just a goofy person, so nice to meet you if this is your first time. We're going to start off with our personal history with Crisis Core. So, who wants to start this one off?
I guess I will.
Okay.
So, my first introduction to Crisis Core... It's funny. I actually saw something of Crisis Core before I saw, well, not before I saw anything of Final Fantasy VII, but before I played Final Fantasy VII proper back in 2015, which was when I first played the game.
Mm-hmm.
Funny enough, like just prior to Cloud being announced for Smash 4.
Yeah.
So that was pretty exciting for me back then. But the first thing I saw of Crisis Core was actually the ending.
Oh,
so
no.
that was just like, oh damn, bro, that's unfortunate for whoever that was, you know. And then years later, I'm talking, how long ago did I play the PSP version? I would say, oh no, it was during the whole COVID stuff when COVID was at its peak. I played the original Crisis Core, and I felt okay about it.
Yeah.
I didn't feel anything particularly strongly either way. I thought Zack was the best part, and he is, I think. But yeah, my history with Crisis Core is basically that it was one of the first Final Fantasy VII related things that I saw, and I think that's kind of funny to look back on.
I agree. Actually, I remember watching you play Crisis Core for the first time as well. I'm pretty sure you streamed it to me.
Yes.
A few times.
I streamed it to a lot of people, yeah.
Yeah.
It was the original. Well, we'll talk about the original when we get to there.
Yeah. How about you, King?
Well, when I was younger, around the time the PSP came out, my dad, I think for like Christmas or something, got me a PSP. I was like, oh, that's cool. And Crisis Core was with it. The only exposure to Final Fantasy I had was through Kingdom Hearts at the time. So I'm playing through basically just this cool game that I have for my PSP. And it's a very special game to me. Because having that introduce me to Final Fantasy was quite a trip.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But yeah, it's basically, that's the first Final Fantasy game I ever played. So,
and I was saying it earlier, but that's such a unique experience to have coming into Final Fantasy, and I like even just the Final Fantasy VII universe through Crisis Core. Because I was saying, I was like, man, like what happens in FF7 is already pretty much like spoiled for you. Spoilers for FF7 also in Crisis Core and the entire Final Fantasy VII universe. If you were afraid of that, then you should probably go play the games.
Oh yeah, there's spoilers galore here.
Yeah, but like to see Cloud already not make Soldier in Crisis Core, and that being the biggest plot twist in the original Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah. I'm glad I didn't have that, because the only thing I had spoiled for me was like what happens to Zack at the end.
Yeah,
I didn't even see Cloud there. I probably did. I just didn't remember by the time I played Final Fantasy VII. Like I didn't remember seeing Cloud there. So when I played the original and I saw the original cutscene of what happens to Zack, I'm going, oh, I remember this. I don't remember Cloud being there though.
Right. And then I guess my personal history with Crisis Core was that I haven't played the original game. I never had it. I had a PSP when I was younger because also my dad got one for me for Christmas. But the only game that came with it was like a monster truck game or something. That was literally all I had. So I didn't have Crisis Core for it. What people commonly say is like the best game on the PSP. Just didn't have it. So props to Crisis Core for getting that title, by the way. Lots of people say that, like the best looking game on PSP. I will say it does look pretty good, like even the original, you know.
Especially if you put it on the emulator and all that, it looks pretty good.
Oh yeah, the emulator, like the amount of work that the fan community has done. Shoutouts to you guys for like upscaling everything and making new models for things, even like fleshing out some more of Midgar and stuff like that. You can do a lot with PPSSSPPSSPP, whatever the hell that emulator is called. Infinite P and S. But yeah, so I never played the original one. I saw the cutscenes for some of them because they were so hilarious out of context. I think I just saw like a Crisis Core cutscene out of context. Like, you know, they have the ones for Kingdom Hearts, which are equally as funny. Of seeing like the interaction between Zack and Angeal, where Zack's
that's
like,
not even funny, man.
Yeah, what are you after? And he's like, world domination. That's not even funny, man. That's just like one of the most funny things ever. Man. But like, because I never played the original Crisis Core, I just kind of like knew the whole story after I played FF7 and 7 Remake and Advent Children. I know the story of Dirge, even though I haven't played that one. I was like, I just kind of want to experience this game because they redid the combat system, they redid the DMW. I guess now is like a perfect time for us to, now is a perfect time for us to go into the version differences, I believe, you know? It's a good segue. So yeah, they pretty much rehauled, I don't want to say everything about the battle system, but
it's almost everything, to be honest.
Like full camera control, that's one version difference that you did not have in the original. There is a run button, which was not in the original. Okay, we'll get into like a lot of the nuances, but the DMW being the biggest change in the combat system, you were not able to skip any of the cutscenes that came from the DMW, which are outside of your control, meaning it would be a slog for a lot of people to have to sit there, and especially if they wanted to grind things and just have to see a cutscene, even the ones that they've seen like over and over and over again. Because for those of you who don't know, the DMW it stands for Digital Mindwave, and it's connected to Zack's heart and memories. So any of the characters that he has interactions with throughout the story, we get more context for those relationships as the story goes on through those DMW cutscenes. And pretty much what happens is it's a 3-slot system, because I guess they like pachinko machines over there. It's a 3-slot system, and depending on what numbers you get and faces that you get in those 3 slots, different things happens to you in battle, between like giving yourself infinite MP or AP, maybe making you invincible, maybe throwing out a special move related to one of those characters if you get it, which spans from levels 1 to 5. And it's completely out of your control. It's all RNG, to an extent, which is interesting, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. And anytime you got one of those cutscenes, like I was talking about before, to play any of those special moves, you could not skip it in the original. So it would make combat, like the pacing of the combat, slower than it needed to be. It was very interesting. But in Remake, you can. That's another big difference. Do you guys want to go into some of the other ones?
I would do rock, paper, scissors, shoot to see who would go next, but I spoke first before, so King, you can go next.
Well, gotta admit, it's been a few months. I know that the combat is vastly improved.
Yeah.
Because I remember I haven't played the PSP version in a while, but it was pretty like basic. And it's not like amazing here or anything. Like it's not the best combat thing I've ever played, but like it's a significant improvement in terms of it being like pretty like I found it to be somewhat addicting especially the first several missions I was doing. It was like surprisingly, I don't know, the animations are just really good, and it like there's a better magic system, and like it all just flows a lot better than it did in the original.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I feel like the mission structure was kind of built around the simple combat, but that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into some more of the nuances of the combat system when we get there, because I think we could all probably speak on it a lot. But before we get there later, is there anything you wanted to add to that section, ST, as well?
Yes. So the combat. Let me talk a bit about the combat in the original, because I still remember it fairly well.
Yeah, I think you might be the only one.
So one of the things, so in the remake, it's more of a remake than it is a remaster, I think. So I'm going to call it
a reunion, actually.
Yeah, it's a reunion. In the reunion version, no matter how far away, or maybe there is a distance to it, but I haven't really tested it. But regardless of, it seems, Zack's distance from the enemy, you press that attack button, and Zack he's there. He's there, man. He zooms across that field. He's there, and you're hitting that enemy. In the original game, you press that attack button, and Zack's like, all right, holds the sword up like a baseball bat, and here he goes trotting along over that enemy. He'll get there eventually. He'll get there. He's going, and he's there, finally. Okay. It's so much slower in the original game.
So wait, was there like an auto-moving system in the original as well? Like
No,
if you were in the middle of a combo?
You had full movement control of Zack, but when you press the attack button, all Zack did was just, if you were far away from an enemy, you press the attack button, he would just auto-run to them. There was no zoom.
As opposed to like jumping at them?
Yeah, there's no cloud zoom dash to get to them. He would just run to them automatically without having you have to do it. Okay. And then, you would just press the attack button over and over. And Zack had 4 different swinging animations, and that was it, really. Also, I distinctly remember back hits being ridiculous. So in Reunion, you get a back hit, you get a critical, right? You do more damage. That's the same thing in the original, but I remember being able to stun lock sweepers if I just got back hits. And you could just keep back hitting them, and they would get stunned after every other hit. And you just mop through fights like that. You didn't need any ability or spell. Just get behind the enemy, mash attack, the fight's over. Congratulations. You beat the game. You won. Unless it's on a really big enemy like Behemoth or something like that, right? But back hits were extremely ridiculous in the original, at least from what I remember. But here, and that's another thing too, the materia and everything that you had. So say that you had fire, thunder, high jump, assault twister, cure, all that good stuff, right?
Yeah.
You would have to cycle with L1 or R1.
Oh, you didn't have any shortcuts?
No. So that that bar that's at the bottom right of the screen that's just purely items in Reunion? Where you have your potions, your ethers, all that good stuff. In the original game, that was where your materia was. And you had to cycle from attack to, say, fire, and then press the attack button to use fire. So every attack was mapped to the same button, which was X. So X was normal attack, but only if you were on the normal attack.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, you get it? So having to cycle through all that, remember where everything is in the heat of the moment, and it's just a lot of micromanaging in the midst of some of these more chaotic missions, and it just felt so clunky and unintuitive, which is why I just said, I'm just going to back hit everything, because I can't be bothered.
Yeah, I've heard from a lot of people that they kind of just stood back and spammed as many magic spells as possible.
Yeah, or that.
A
lot of the stuff that I saw in Crisis Core Reunion, I never saw in the original because I just couldn't be bothered. I just couldn't be bothered to do it.
So good on them for at least enticing the player to
Yeah.
actually use
So-
the amount of the options that you get. The amount of materia in this game is ridiculous with the materia fusion.
It's absurd how much materia you get. So, talking more about the reunion gameplay aspect of it now, like you already mentioned stuff about the DMW and all that. I'm not going to go over that again. Like you said, the cutscenes, you could just skip them. The DMW no longer interrupts gameplay. Fantastic. Just great. But them incorporating the shortcut system from FF7 Remake into here.
and
with all
Kingdom
the
Hearts as
materia and
well.
actions. Huh? What? I'm
And
sorry.
Kingdom Hearts as well. Pretty
Yeah,
sure
of course.
that's where it
and
came from first.
Kingdom Hearts.
Mhm.
And they even expanded upon it here because now you have R1 and R2 to put spells or abilities on.
True, yeah.
Whereas in Remake and also Kingdom Hearts, I believe, you only have the 4 face buttons for that.
You do.
So that I really liked. And that alone, that simple little change makes the gameplay so much more fluid and fun to play because now everything is at literally the tip of my fingers. I can combo into abilities, which they made into an actual mechanic now. You cancel Zack's combo into, say, Assault Twister. Not only does he just immediately cancel into that attack, but it does even more damage, which is really cool. Those things they implemented with the Buster Sword stance. And,
yeah. We'll get into those details as well when we get over to the battle system. We only have like one more topic before we hit the battle system in full.
Yeah.
So don't
talk
spoil
more.
your full thoughts yet.
Yeah, I'm just talking about I just wanted to mention that little bit in comparison to the original, but
it's hard not to spoil everything about it because that's like the biggest difference between the original and this version, right? It's like all of these little changes in the battle system. The graphics as well, those look great, I wouldn't say they look as good as something like a Remake, right? Of course not, because it's a remaster of the PSP game. But honestly, the environments look really pretty to me. The character models themselves look really nice to me. They
changed the voices.
Yes, they changed the voices.
Yes, which is a bit of a hot topic, I've noticed.
We'll get there. We'll get there for sure. Yeah. Because I have my own thoughts on that. I don't necessarily think I agree with the majority of people on this one. So, yeah.
All right. So that's enough of my rambling for now. I had a lot to say about comparing the two there, but
ramble to your heart's content, man. But next we have version differences, which I just said that. Next is which system should you play this on? And this is weird for me because I played it on PS5. King K, you played it on PC, and you played it on PS5 as well. Okay.
Yeah,
so,
I played it on PS5.
Yeah. So, here's the thing, right? Is like, the game is designed around portability. That's what, to a fault, with all the side missions and everything like that, it's designed around portability. When you're just like, on the go, or just laying down on your bed or whatever, you could just sit there, and relax and play those side missions and level up so you can get your way through the story, or just to unlock new things, right? That's not as fun or as relaxing to do when you're sitting in a chair playing on your system, I don't think, unless you have like a setup where it's like you're laying down on your bed or whatever and you have your TV right in front of you or whatever. But even still, you don't have that portability aspect to it in the modern ports, other than the Switch. But with the Switch, there's a problem because the game's only in 30 FPS as opposed to the 60 FPS on modern consoles like the PS5 and the Xbox Series X. So it's like, what do you value more? The portability aspect of it at 30 FPS or the nicer graphics, no frame drops, whatever, on modern consoles or your PC? And then I was thinking, well, wait a minute. Steam Deck exists. I think definitively that has to be the best version of the game, because you get all of that. But for the average consumer, what do you value more? The PS5 or like modern consoles or the Switch? What do you guys think?
I actually forgot about the Steam Deck. That's a good point. I guess I'll go. So I would say the PS5 it's a great version. I've had no problems with it. Constant 60, game looks beautiful, no performance issues, all that. But the issue is still for a lot of people getting the console itself.
That's true too. I didn't even consider that. Like the console market out there is still pretty crazy. Like trying to get a PS5 or an Xbox Series X right now is still a problem. So
getting a Series X is easier, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I would say if you got a strong enough PC, go. I always think the PC version is like the best version of any game. But
I'm pretty sure on PC too you can hit frame rates of like 120.
Oh,
King,
most certainly.
What do you value more, like the portability, or does that even matter to you as someone who started the game on PSP?
I don't know who you're asking.
Oh no, yeah, sorry. I asked King because he had played the game on PSP, not the emulator first. Like,
yeah, I played it on emulator. So King, you take it from here, man.
I mean, I don't know. I didn't play it portably for PC, and I guess I did on PSP, but it was like I sort of just kind of marathon through it anyway when I first played it. So I don't know. I think if I were to play it on my Steam Deck, I don't really know why I didn't play it on my Steam Deck, but it probably would have been better than on my PC.
Yeah, just so that way you could take it around everywhere, or just lay down in your bed and play it, or if you needed to go somewhere. I mean, I don't know. That's just how I see it, because it seems like the game was designed with that in mind, where it's like you play part of the story. It's in chapters, right? And then you can do all this stuff in between the chapters while you're gone or whatever, and then you can come back and play those main chapter versions on your PC if you wanted to, right? It's you can kind of go back and forth. So yeah, but I'm sure a lot of people would probably play it on Switch too, which, by the way, this game is on everything, so like good for them for actually putting it on everything right away, instead of, Sony making a deal to put this on just PS5 and PS4 or something like Remake was. So that's cool. That means like more people who have played the OG FF7, because that's on Switch now as well, can now experience more of the FF universe, even if that's the only console they have. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, I couldn't imagine playing the game at 30, but, I would adjust, but I would rather not. Like, the Switch, I hope they are working on something new.
Oh, for Nintendo, just working on a new console?
Yeah, just in general for Nintendo.
Well, there have been rumors for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last ever.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I guess the next topic, now we can finally get into like all the gameplay, right? Just let intuition take over. I have a bunch of topics for us to start with, or for us to hit, but we can start with gameplay, just generalized battle system. Yeah. We'll go right into the battle system, because we were talking about that a lot anyway. So King, why don't you start with the battle system, if you wouldn't mind?
Yeah, well, like I said, I thought it was pretty fun. Like the first several hours, I was like I did a lot of side missions. I kind of just ignored the story for a little while, because it felt really satisfying to fight enemies and get new materia and stuff. I think that it's the improved animations and the way that the combat has changed from the original just makes it a lot more fun to go out and do the missions. I think the further that I got, the more willing I was to just use broken materia just to get through the missions, because the combat's fun, but it only lasts, like, it's one of those things where the novelty wears off pretty quick. But luckily, that once it wears off, you're at a point where you can pretty much just break the game in half anyway. So
yeah, exactly.
Oh, costly punch.
I was gonna say costly punch, guild toss. Anyone? I'm dealing 99,000 damage in a single hit with damage breakers and stuff like that. I totally agree with you, because when I was first playing the game, and even still to the end, every single move I did in the game felt good. It felt impactful to punch something in the face with Costly Punch. Doesn't matter if it's the 60th time I did it. It just felt good. When I was starting off, like throwing the lightning spells out. Like, I don't know. I was super addicted to it, exactly like you said, because it feels very traditional JRPG. Like, it's a super nice mix of what I'm addicted to in other RPGs, which is just like seeing the numbers go up and making my brain light up from the numbers going up, like actually seeing the differences between the levels of spells that you're getting, the attacks that you're throwing out. You're constantly being fed like, oh, you leveled up in this way, you leveled up in this way, you leveled up in this way, and they made every action look and feel and sound good. So it's like, it's really hard not to get addicted to that combat system. I was sitting there for hours and hours just doing side missions as well. ST can attest to that. I was sitting there for like, what, 5 hours with you? Doing side missions or something one night. It's just...
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was the same way, like, when I first got the game, and I had nothing to do but just play it, you know?
Yeah.
So, I guess now it's my turn about the gameplay. So, I do agree about the whole... the game does get old after a while. It does get repetitive. But, man, is it just so fun to just play it. Like, I think the biggest thing for me is how fast-paced it is, how fluid Zack feels to control. And I'm not sure if you did, King, but Juice and I here, we did play the game on hard mode, and I think that helped it a lot.
I think I was on normal.
Okay.
Probably.
I think playing it on hard mode was the way to go because, you know, the fact that it was more challenging meant I had to actually use my brain and not just
it like forces you
all over the controller.
Yeah, it forces you to use a lot of options that you otherwise probably would not do in normal. At least I would think. I didn't play it in normal mode. I didn't play the original in normal mode. I started on hard mode, but I could see the applications of me doing it on hard mode, right? It just, I don't know, the amount of times that it just like ST said, I think maybe that helped me go through it a little bit more without it getting old. Because it does eventually, but I think having to like dodge around things more, because I was at risk of dying in one hit in a lot of the missions, like very easily, or even in the story. Like I remember fighting Genesis, and he does a move that killed me in one hit on hard mode, and that was after doing a bunch of side missions and everything too. And I was just like, damn, I guess I'll have to strategize like differently here. But it comes with the caveat of a lot of things become HP sponges too. So like you know,
like there's a lot of times where I died. just oh, okay, there's the game over screen again. I'm getting used to it, you know, on hard mode, and because Zack is like a glass cannon, he'll die. Like, even when you get, I have full max HP, like the fullest HP. I have like 2 materia with like plus 999% HP. And on level 10 missions, Zack still dies in like 3 hits sometimes. And it's absurd. And that's with having the Genji shield on, which automatically gives you wall. And all this other crazy stuff. And when the characters, the enemies do become a bit bullet spongy. But at the same time, you can just dish out so much power that it doesn't feel, as long as you have the right stuff, it doesn't feel too bad. Like, say, you do Buster Sword stance with Assault Twister Plus. That thing shreds so many enemies, it's absurd.
Is it a 1.5 times multiplier when you're in Buster Sword doing an AP move?
I don't know the exact percentage, but it's high.
Yeah.
It probably is 1.5, but it's...
Which, by the way, is another addition that, you know, this reunion version has over the original, is you have this thing called Buster Sword stance, which you get when you get, guess what? The Buster Sword. Where all of a sudden it takes... It creates a little bit more glue, a little bit more continuity between Crisis Core and even Final Fantasy VII Remake in their battle system, because when you go into like heavy mode or this Buster Sword stance mode, it's like the same thing where you can take more damage, but then you like do a heavy hit and you deal more damage, which was really cool to see. It kind of felt like, you know, like I said, some continuity between the two games.
Like Zack literally does strike the same Punisher mode stance that Cloud does in the remake.
Punisher mode, yeah.
The main difference here is that Zack doesn't have a counter or anything like that, but he just takes less damage while he's standing like that. And, you know, pressing the attack button, you do this heavy attack, you follow up with a more extended combo of his normal one. And that's all fine and cool, but the real benefit of it is you do an AP move, namely, in it, and the power of it just skyrockets so much.
And you know what? Honestly, the game doesn't punish you much for dying. Like, even if you're dying a lot in hard mode, I think, and this is kind of like the spirit of not the spirit of Final Fantasy, but something that happens a lot in the Final Fantasy battle systems is like, are you prepared for the fight or are you not prepared for the fight? Right? And hard mode kind of accentuates that to me, where it's like, you go in. If I'm dying in 1 and 2 hits, or like, what am I weak to? What are they weak to? Why am I not dealing out damage? What are their weaknesses? It's like a trial and error thing, almost like the original Final Fantasy VII. Like if you're going into a boss fight, so that's cool to me.
When
you can just retry from the last battle.
Yeah, like here when you die on hard mode, not if, when. When you die on hard mode, the game asks you if you want to review your equipment and try again.
Yeah,
and
I'm sure. I think. I mean, I would assume it's the same thing on normal mode. It's just that it's probably going to apply to you more on hard mode. You know.
Yeah, it's gonna definitely play more in hard mode. You know, but the fact that you can do that, like, okay, this enemy has he's using lightning, so let me go into my equipment and equip that one accessory that makes me just immune to lightning. So I don't have to even think about that attack anymore. Stuff like that. It has a lot of... It really... Like, yes, it's an RPG game, but it really does feel like a very RPG game. I don't know how to say it, but... It has a lot of that classical RPG flair that I do find myself really enjoying.
Yeah, it's like... That's where the addictive nature comes from me anyway, other than like the sounds and the impact of the moves. And would you agree is like that's the same like feeling for you, King, or are you addicted to like another aspect of it, do you think?
I mean, yeah, I think it really just feels like the animation to me made it feel a lot more like, or like the sound effects or what like, because what I would do most of the time is like just when you use like a magic move, the fact that it does like such a high number and it has this wind up thing where he like, especially if you're in the higher magics, so you like have this huge wind up and then he like lets this magic loose and it like kills everything. Like there were missions I was doing missions later on where like you're on the beach and you have to do this a million times, and I just spammed Earthquake or like Quake or whatever it's called, and I just kept spamming that and killing everything in like one hit. It's just I don't know. I think the fact for me that you can break it is almost more satisfying than the combat was originally somehow, because it's just, I don't know. It's not like a particularly complicated thing to figure out. Like eventually you're just going to get to a point where like you're doing a fuck ton of damage, at least on normal. So like it's just kind of it was fun to experiment with the materia. And that said, there were a few missions where like you're fighting like the scorpion things, whatever the thing is called, the first boss of FF7.
Scorpion Sentinel in FF7 Remake. I think it's called the Guard Scorpion prototype in Crisis Core.
Well, those things, there was a mission I was doing with those things. I don't know if I was just under level, but those things were a pain in the ass to fight, and
was it the one on the field where there are 4 of them?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate that mission.
I remember that one.
I don't understand that mission still, and I don't know, that pissed me off.
I want to actually talk about that mission because once I figured out, because again, I was playing on hard mode, and I figured out a strategy how to go through it pretty easily and safely, and it felt really good to figure that out. So one of the new things I implemented to Zack's toolkit in Reunion is how I mentioned earlier when you're in a combo, you do an AP move, Zack will just automatically cancel into it. Boom, he's doing that attack,
Oh, yeah. So you figured out the best ways to avoid the attacks.
This applies to spells as well. But when Zack does a spell, he'll do like this jump back and then fire off the spell, like a fireball or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I learned that as I was attacking the Guard Scorpion, and it would do its big AoE, before I would, he's doing his AoE, I got to roll out of here, right? But instead, I learned that if I were to use, say, Thunder, right when he's about to unleash it, Zack step back, puts him just enough out of range for him to dodge the attack, but also counter it at the same time with the spell. And then I could just zoom right back in and keep the aggression going. And that just felt really cool to do. Felt really good to do.
Yep.
It gave me almost like some, because I've been playing a lot of Bloodborne, so like past couple months. That game is all about being aggressive in the enemy's face and learning how can you dodge this move, but while still being super aggressive as possible. And while
dealing
this
out
game
as
is
much damage as possible.
Yeah,
in
exactly.
The time
and this game is nothing like Bloodborne, but I felt a sort of like, that kind of reminds me of like a similar philosophy of I'm evading these attacks in a really quick and snappy way, but still keeping my aggression going without ever getting hit. So because of the Guard Scorpion in this example, I found out how to, I thought the back step, that's a cool looking thing, but I don't know when that would be useful. Well, I found out a way for it to be useful, at least in a very specific spot, but I thought it was cool.
It was useful in so many ways, like the backstep into spell, 100,000%. And also another way to avoid a lot of those attacks is, you can't avoid the EM field like with the aerial drain, which is what I'm about to say. But you can avoid the other things. Well, that's that enemy's most damage dealing thing is the
the big AoE, right?
Yeah, which is that's the thing you would back up for and throw try Gongaga or whatever you have at that point. But the other attacks front on are what you can use aerial drain for as well. But even me, I was under leveled for that. I still made it through, but I was like, my God, this is taking forever because I didn't have the right stuff. But it still felt good to do it eventually. Yeah, to figure it out.
Another thing I realized too is that a lot of times just simply you see that the enemy is preparing this attack. Instead of rolling, I would just guard cancel because you can just tap guard and Zack will quickly just kind of twitch his sword and stop attacking. And I just run around the attack. Not roll, just run around them and keep my attack going. So, but that wouldn't be possible in the original. I don't think you were able to guard cancel in the original. I might be wrong. It has been a while.
Yeah.
But I like the fact that, I'm interacting with the game's mechanics and being a reward. Is this a fun video game to play now? That's insane.
That's crazy. So wait, you said this game was nothing like Bloodborne. Would you not call it the Dark Souls of the Final Fantasy VII?
No.
I'm joking.
Dark Souls of Final Fantasy. That would be Final Fantasy 2, right?
Fuck that game. I don't want to talk about that game
What
anymore.
do you mean?
I don't want to talk about Final Fantasy 2. King K
your favorite.
King K and I already talked about Final Fantasy 2 for an hour and a half. That's enough of that.
Yes.
Yeah, you could talk about it for another hour and a half. That would make 2 hour and a half. So it goes with Final Fantasy 2.
I'm excited to eventually play Final Fantasy Origins so I can kick the Emperor in the face again. Honestly, it'll probably feel good. That game looks so funny. Origins.
But yeah, make no mistake, I'm not comparing Crisis Core to Bloodborne because, dear Lord, they could have been more different. But just that element of aggression and keeping the aggression going is a philosophy that applies a lot to that game. And I just shades of Bloodborne.
Yeah, that's the new movie that's coming out. Premiered with Shades of Grey.
Shades of Grey, yeah.
Slightly different topics.
But I mean, I don't know what else I could say about the gameplay that we haven't already talked about. There's probably something there's a lot of things with the Buster Sword proficiency that you do get beyond just more damage and more attacks.
Yeah, I only got it up to 15%. I don't know what you guys got it to. The only thing I unlocked
like
was
64 for me.
Okay, what did you unlock other than damage break when you're in stance?
I actually have the game up right now. Let me check.
What did you get it to, King? Because I think you probably did less side missions than I did, right?
It's only like 12%. Eventually I just gave up using the damn mode because I'm like, this is. I was interested at first. I was interested at first because I was like, wow, this, I want to get this percentage up, but it's like the slowest thing humanly imaginable. I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't know either. It's like broken, right? There's something wrong with it. I don't know what happened. When I was in the middle of a side mission, I was at 2%, and then it jumped up to 12, and then eventually to 50, in one mission. What did I do differently here? What was the gate that was keeping me from... Yeah, what is going on there? And I've heard reports. I've heard reports of it not being able to go past 95% as well. But then maybe that was only on. So that was only on PC. That was some
Yes.
What happens if you get to 100? Does anyone know?
There is something. Yeah, I don't see. So yeah, damage limit break. Oh yeah, so I got a thing called barrier piercing. Zack's proficiency with a bunch of swords is approved. Blah 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 blah. A barrier piercing effect is activated. This will allow Zack to ignore enemy barrier effects when dealing damage. So he just outright ignores defenses that enemies, if they put up barrier or wall or whatever, Zack just stops caring. He'll just do the same damage always. Unless it's invincible or something like that.
Yeah. And that would be just in the Buster Sword stance?
Just in Buster Sword stance.
Okay.
There is something else for Max. I could look it up real quick.
Sure, might as well. Well, like I said, I only got to 15%, and that was 65% the way through all the side missions, and the story was done. So it's I don't know. I'll go into more of the side mission stuff later, but there comes a point when you're like, all right, do I really want to 100% this? This is pretty repetitive. Does it even matter what I get for the Buster Sword stance if I'm just hitting everything with Costly Punch for 99999 anyway? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it once you get to a point, Buster Sword stance becomes more situational. Say if you use it in conjunction with Aerial Drain, you do regain more health because you're doing more damage with that move.
Which is necessary if you're using Costly Punch, in my loadout.
Yeah, and if you're playing on hard mode at all, if you don't have Aerial Drain, then you really should. There's no reason to have Cure or anything like that.
Because it's a dodge, an attack, and a heal. It's just
at this
straight
all
up
in
better.
one.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
What was that does remind me. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. So you get something called Barrier Break.
Oh, that just straight up destroys all the shields?
I'm guessing so. I'm trying to read exactly what it does. I'm not finding anything specific. But probably, yeah. I don't know. I feel like past the damage break, the things you get afterwards are kind of underwhelming. Yeah. The best parts of Buster Sword stance is, what the actual stance itself does. You guard, you take even less damage while you're in that mode. And things like Necromos, that's really cool. I do think actually if you block while in the Buster Sword stance, it's better than your normal block. You take even less damage.
Yeah,
it's 80% less damage.
And then you can immediately follow up with something. So I feel like it's always kind of useful. So if you're doing more damage like that, it's just but the proficiency actually leveling it up. Yeah, it's so random what's going to happen. Yeah, what is that even...
the proficiency, honestly, it's so slow. It's I have
it doesn't communicate. It doesn't communicate to you what to do to actually make it go higher. It just says use it. and then you use it, and it's like,
yeah, just use it, bro.
All right, I've been using it in every battle. It's at 3%. I've been playing for 5 hours since I got it. What's going on here? It's like, why use it? Like King said, in that case, if it's not going to go up, if I'm not going to get anything from it, then what do you mean? What does the proficiency matter?
Exactly. Yeah, I'm at nearly 53 hours, and it's not even at 70%.
Yeah.
You know.
So, while we're on the battle system, what were your loadouts? It's probably pretty interesting, like your final loadouts. If any, King, it's been like months for you, but does anything stand out for you that you like remember doing a lot in your Materia loadout?
I used a lot of the dark versions of magic. I used high jump almost all the time. That was about it. I don't remember. It was good enough to get me through the normal mode.
Yeah.
Me. Let's see. When I got Mug, I kept it on exclusively just so I could steal a bunch of stuff, which there are a lot of enemies that drop really good things.
Yeah.
Assault Twister Plus, like that I kept on because it just does an obscene amount of damage when you bust your stance. It will do more than Costly Punch, especially if you get criticals. It will just shred enemies. Speaking of Costly Punch, yeah, of course you have that. Aerial Drain because of what we mentioned earlier. And then I would have other spells like either Hell versions of spells or like the Tri-Fire or Electrocute.
Yeah.
Spells like that, like the really high-end, high-damaging.
Flare,
yeah.
Ultima, stuff like that.
Ultima was a little slow, which is why I kind of just stayed with Electrocute instead. But yeah, Ultima, I mean, it looks really cool.
I never got it. I only because I didn't get that far in the side missions. I have Flare.
Oh yeah. Like it's Ultima does a lot of damage, but it uses so much MP and it's so slow that I'm just like, I would rather just use something else.
Yeah.
Even if it is a screen nuke, because it'll just hit everything on screen. But with something like Electrocute, and if you have dual cast with it as well.
Wait, what do you mean dual cast?
There's a material called dual cast, which Zack will just cast the same spell twice in quick succession.
Oh. And with the same amount of MP taken?
I don't remember, but
okay.
Either way, it's just like if you use Electrocute on a big enemy and you have dual cast, that enemy shake my hand, good sir.
Yeah. Bye-bye. And you had like the Genji shield on and maybe like the Genji armor and a few other things.
I have Genji shield, Brutal, Shinra, Beta Plus, like all this crazy stuff.
Yeah. I think my loadout, I didn't have Mug yet, but I know I had Steel. I just got Electrocute, so I think I wasn't using that because Tri-Thunder did more damage, and I was at the end of the game. Costly Punch I had, Aerial Drain, Flare I was leveling up, and one other thing, but I don't really remember. And
another really good move that I used a lot in like the early mid-game was Darkness.
Yeah, Darkness is the thing that I kept using like over and over again because that's the cool thing. Costly Punch doesn't do regular damage or magic damage, and it's the same thing with Darkness, and I think Quake, where it doesn't do like those kinds of damages, so even if they have a magic shield up or they're resistant against something like that, it'll just kill them anyway.
Yeah, it just does damage, not physical or magical. It just does a big number.
Yeah, so if they happen to throw up those barriers, which a lot of them do in the side missions, I remember I always got pissed off that these little things would be casting barrier and end barrier on like the sweepers and shit, and I was like, stop it. And then I got like Darkness and Costly Punch and all that stuff, and it didn't matter. I would just kill them anyway.
And Darkness is also pretty nice because it is like a pretty big AoE. So you just hit everything around you while it's spending some health.
Yeah.
And the fact that, again, it doesn't do physical or magical damage. Yeah, it's a pretty good move.
And I guess now that we're talking about Materia, right? We could probably get into the Materia system and how it like evolves from the original Final Fantasy VII, Materia Fusion, Like how all this, comes into play. What did you think about all that, King?
I like the Materia fusion was interesting because reminded me a lot of how Birth by Sleep works. Where in Birth by Sleep you fuse commands to make new commands. It's pretty much the exact same system, actually. So it was kind of cool to like fuse stuff and try to get really broken materia from it. That's how I got a lot of my dark magics and whatever.
Yeah.
And when you get a new thing like that, and it's really powerful, it makes it more satisfying. I think it has, for me, is kind of like in Birth by Sleep, is a little bit confusing what you're supposed to, you're not always going to get all the materia because, like, unless you look up this shit, I, like, don't even know.
Yeah.
Some of the materia you listed today, I don't think I ever got.
Yeah, there's the combinations for the materia fusion. It's like, why does this make that?
Yeah.
Why?
But, I mean, it was fun to play around with them once you actually get them.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
If I may, about the materia fusion. So
Go for it.
I think there is a way to see what materia makes what in the original PSP version, but I believe it was a separate menu or something like that. It wasn't as just obvious in your face as it is in Reunion, where you put these two together and it will make this,
Yeah.
But
wait, so in the original it didn't tell you what you were going to get when you fused two together? You would just have to...
I don't think so.
What? So you just waste materia fusing them together?
I think it did, but it was a separate menu that you would have to look at or something.
So that's just a UI improvement.
Yeah, it was just a UI improvement.
One thing I will say is that, like, at least in the mail, they will give you some tips of how to fuse certain things together, like try to entice you into experimenting, right? They'd be like, if you fuse this and this, you'll get this. You should try it. Or like, if you fuse this with like poison, you'll get a dark version of the spell or a hell version of a spell. Things like that.
Which is good. I'm glad that the game actually does that, because it's at least trying to encourage the player to interact with this system. And it is a good system to interact with because it's how you get the best materia in the game. Like sure, you can get, say, electrocute via a chest in a really late game mission, but without materia fusion, you can't, give it, say, MP plus whatever percent that you want, or something crazy like that. HP plus 999%.
Yeah.
Attack up plus 100. Stuff like that. Like, you need materia fusion for that.
Yeah, that's the other thing about the materia fusion, where it's like, if you're doing the late side missions, your loadout pretty much has to have those materia that you have extra buffs on top of them, because unless you have like all Genji armor or whatever, you're not getting through things without that. You're gonna need your HP to be as high as humanly possible, your attack to be as hot as... Yeah, and to get the Genji armor, at least on hard mode, you're gonna already need to have that, probably, right? To be able to go through those missions.
Getting the Genji armor is a hassle, but...
We'll get into side missions too and see which ones we'd like and dislike, but I think that it's like... I definitely had to look stuff up myself. I had to go outside of the game, outside of the media, in order to figure out what does what, which I will say is probably a fault of the game, right? I think that it probably could have, maybe if you talk to some scientist or something, that they gave you a general rundown of what things will make what, because I think King is right in that sense, where it's like, I didn't even hear of most of this stuff. I didn't know that you could fuse this stuff together. Like, it didn't tell you everything.
Normal's not very taxing, so like really you just make like Dark Firaga or like, like shit like that.
Yeah, and you're good.
Just kind of get through the game with it.
Yeah, whereas like in hard mode, you kind of need like hell spells kind of early-ish on.
Yeah, hell is like the next level.
I think I was using Hellfire or something, some kind of hell spell as well.
If it was like a bright like pinkish red, then you were using hell spells.
Yeah.
And me, I have a friend who has played this game, who played the PSP version to absolute death, did everything in it, so he knew all the materia combinations.
He's just like Zack for real.
Yeah, like here, just make all this stuff, and I was like, oh, okay, huh.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind, you know. But yeah, there were stuff where I had to look up because okay, I want this specific spell. How in the world do I make it?
Yeah. I remember I was streaming the game to you, and I was like, do you need such specific things at specific levels to get certain things? And yeah, the mail lets you know about like all the plus stuff, like if you fuse this and this together, and which is prioritized in Materia Fusion. So it's good that you can at least reference that stuff. But I remember I was trying to get Aerial Drain or whatever, and I had to fuse like 3 or 4 different things together just to make it.
Get it. Yeah.
And I was like, oh my goodness gracious. Aerial Drain, for you, if you don't know, King, it's the same thing as high jump, but you come down and you absorb their HP.
Yeah, I had Aerial Drain.
Oh,
I don't know if I used it too much, but...
Oh, yeah. It's like one of the best moves of the game. It's ridiculous.
It's the same thing as high jump, but you get HP back.
Yeah, it's literally just high jump, but you have...
Oh, yeah, no, I used that.
Okay.
Yeah. I was using something like that, yeah.
Yeah, it's just high jump. The jump moves in general are just broken because how many iframes you get.
Poison Aerial was like the first one I got in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good one to have from early on.
So let's see. What were your favorite materia to get then? Like, which ones did I mean, we already went over our loadouts, but like... Okay, so, well, I mean, we're just talking about materia, so I'm, like, trying to think of all the different ones. There's Gil Toss, which is broken, that you're going to need for later in the missions. Insane. Yeah, Gil Toss is, like... So, you need it for the final boss. Like, the actual final boss of this game, which is in a side story. Well, okay.
Well, you mean
the hardest... Yeah, for the hardest mission in the game, which is Minerva, the goddess of the life stream. Yeah. You need to have Gil Toss, pretty much. Well, you don't have to, but, like, if you want to beat the boss in like less than an hour, and I'm being serious, you should probably have Gil Toss, which takes the gil that you have and throws it, and each attack I think does, if you have Limit Breaker on, 99999, so 100,000 times 5, like about 500,000 every single time you throw it, which is the highest dealing.
Do you know how much gil it uses per use?
No.
Okay.
But I know that
be broke real quick.
Yeah, I know you need it for Minerva, and I know it kind of sucks because, like, if you want to actually fight Minerva and like refight her after, like if you happen to do it, you'll have to grind for all the gil again that you just lost. There's just no.
Yeah.
There's no way you're really gonna do it without it.
Definitely gonna be a one and done boss. Like, okay, I'm never doing that again.
Yeah. Every single attack that Minerva has one-shots you. You can't do anything about it. At the highest level, you just die. So,
it's a difference of skill. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's a skill. It's just a skill issue, Minerva.
Yeah, bro,
I mean, honestly, you shouldn't really be able to beat the goddess of the entire planet. I don't think, but. You know, Crisis Core is just built different.
This is an RPG. We wake up in a tree, and then we go kill God by the end of it, okay?
I mean, that is true. That is true. That's true, actually. I didn't think about that.
But actually, before we get into, like, certain materia itself, one other thing I want to highlight is how Reunion... I didn't use it that much. It does give you, like, 5 materia sets. Like, just different loadouts that you can have there on the fly that you can make ahead of time. Like, I want this kind of set for this situation, this one for this one, blah, 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 blah. The original didn't have that, you know? But here you have, like, 5 sets that you can make with various different types of materia and equipment. So you can just really customize Zack however you want and have all these different customized options on the fly for you to switch to at any time.
Yeah, that way you don't have to sit there, like, if you lost a battle, let's say you already have a loadout ready that's like, this is more geared toward this thing, and it would already be ready. And honestly, that's, I think, something that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth should probably also do, because I don't think Remake had that, did it?
I don't think so.
But then you have to think about that for each of the characters, too, though, so that might be different. In this game, all you have to worry about is Zack.
I don't think it did have it. I don't think it did.
Yeah. which is cool. I never used it.
Yeah,
but I was looked at it. I was like, oh, good. I'm glad that they have that. Anyway,
yeah,
I'm not.
yeah, I barely use it as well, but I'm sure there are people who got
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure.
a use out of it.
Yeah.
Just because I didn't use it, but
it's. I mean, more options the better, as long as they're organized. In my opinion.
Yeah, but
to
go into more of the materia, and good lord, where do we even begin? There's so many.
Yeah, I mean, like King said, the only ones that he really needed to get through the story were like some of the hell spells and like aerial drain. Whereas I feel like I don't know if I would have been able to beat the final boss with that. I don't think so. I don't think I would have be able to beat Genesis with just like Hell Firaga and aerial drain. At least not with taking like ages and ages. There'd just be no way. So I guess, like we were saying, I think hard mode probably does entice you to have to. It like forces you to interact with the systems a little bit more, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, it's hard to say what my favorite one is, other than Costly Punch, because it just felt so good to punch things in the face to kill them.
It helps that Zack's animation for it is pretty funny. Like he hobbles on one leg and then just throws his arm forward. Yeah.
It's
the
so
way he
awesome.
hobbles on one leg for like a few frames is what gets me every time.
Yeah, totally. And like just the wind up, the classic cartoon punch.
Yeah.
Just like, why is this killing things? I'm slicing it with a sword like all the time. I'm using these super high leveled spells, and then Crisis, funny Final Fantasy comes along.
And then dead.
Punching my microphone over here. It's so fun. Definitely, probably my favorite materia there. Glad that that's in there.
It's a funny move for sure.
I didn't really use much of the elemental strike stuff. I wonder how those look.
Oh, like the spin slashes or whatever. Like the
no,
like
I used like I used Blizzard Blade and stuff like that, and I thought those felt good. There was a materia,
which are new additions, by the way.
Oh, those aren't in the original?
No, those are not in the original.
Oh, yeah, because those felt good. It's like the 2-part attack between like Blizzard Blade or something.
Something like Blizzard. I'm glad that like the first one you get is Blizzard Blade, because normal Blizzard is kind of bad compared to like Fire and Lightning. As you know, it's so slow, and enemies can just dodge it by
because it hits them from the top. So you're like casting it, and then they just but they're locked onto you. So then when they move forward, and I don't think Blizzard deals any more damage than Thunder or Fire unless they're weak to it, right? So it's like if it's a neutral thing, you only
use it if they're weak to it. But
so why would you ever?
But Blizzard Blade just I'm just going to use this instead. You know?
Yeah. And it felt good to do, like in the middle of the combo.
No, they're really cool moves. Yeah, no pun intended. But they weren't in the original. I'm fairly certain they were not in the original game. There's a few materia. I don't know. Like I know those weren't in the original, but there might be others that weren't in the original either. I don't know for sure. But
that reminds me of
things
something...
like Exploder Blade and whatnot, like. Because moves like Power Slam or whatever it was called, Exploder Blade, those used Cloud's Blade Burst animation from Remake for those attacks. So I get the feeling those are new moves.
Yeah.
Because, that animation obviously did not exist in the original Crisis Core. So I get the feeling that's a new move.
Yeah, probably. And that reminds me of something that we didn't bring up. We brought up some of the differences in the battle system. I don't know if in the original you got rewarded for doing certain things or to not get hit and stuff like that. Does that wasn't in the original?
No. So that's another thing I forgot to mention about like the original to Reunion. Once Zack becomes soldier once he becomes first class, he gets the whole thing of he gets more HP, MP, AP, depending how you perform in battle, or if you just don't get hit, you just get everything back, basically.
That was probably one of my favorite new things.
Yeah.
Because that was part of the reason it was so addicting to do the missions, is that if you get through unscathed and getting rewarded for it, I mean, I love fucking Sonic. I love getting ranked. I love Devil May Cry. I love getting ranked. I just love when you do well and the game's like, wow, you did better than we expected you to do. Something about that always tickles me.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like, it was one of my favorite aspects about this too. I can't believe I forgot to mention it earlier, but yeah, I guess it was one of those things that I just took for granted, because like, oh yeah, of course it was in the original game. Oh wait, no, it totally wasn't in the original game.
It heavily rewards you for doing well by giving you MP, AP, and HP back, meaning you have to use less resources, which is super important in hard mode. I mean, you get a shit ton of gil later, but still. I
agree with King K here. Like, I got a Devil May Cry feeling from it as well, because I played a lot of Devil May Cry as well. And say in Devil May Cry 5, you play as Dante. If you manage to keep the triple S style rank going, you know, you're able to quickly access a super form of his, I'll just put it that way, and do a really powerful attack for like a few seconds and then cancel out of it. And if you keep that rank going, you keep the combos going, you don't take damage, you're just able to unleash these really powerful, super cool attacks. You know, the game rewards you for playing well by giving you more power so you can continue, so you can play even better, you know? Yeah.
And in this case, it just kind of gives you resources back, but I still think that's super valuable. The fact that it's like,
I mean,
like after every single battle, it would just be like,
being that this is an RPG, you know, that is more valuable in the context.
It makes it feel less like you're in control, basically. So if you rock into a fight with no resources, it's kind of your fault in a lot of cases, because like you didn't keep those going, keep the chain going. It's kind of one thing that I like. This is very random, but in Persona 4, you can prolong your time in dungeons if you keep the end card rotation going to keep restoring your MP or your SP, I guess. Because normally if you run out of SP, you basically have to leave the dungeon. But if you keep the after battle shuffle going and keep getting cards where you keep getting your SP restored, you can prolong your time in the dungeon and probably beat it in a single day. And it sort of reminds me, like, those kinds of systems are very satisfying, and I think that they're shit like that. It makes you feel more in control of what's going on, and I like that in RPGs.
Yeah,
totally.
There are even other games too that in some ways, a few Sonic games even incorporate things like that too, with like, oh, you kept this enemy chain going, here's a ton of points for you to better your score. Right?
Yeah, I mean, when we were talking about, even when we were in the SA2 podcast, we brought up how important the ranking system was because of that. 100%.
That makes you engage more with the systems of the game.
If I had to put it in one way, I think the thing that Crisis Core Reunion does infinitely better than the original is keep you in the game by giving you all these resources back. But like, you never have to like leave a mission or something like that unless you just die and you just don't have the equipment, which is cool. But it gets you right back in there. You know what I mean? It doesn't really punish you that much for it. You can buy items on the fly in the menu during the side missions as well. But if you don't want to use your gil, you can take that risk, like King K was saying, be in more control, go into that battle, and possibly even leave the battle with more HP that you started in by not getting hit.
Yeah.
I mean, that's awesome. You know what I mean?
You know, like there's nothing more hilarious than using Costly Punch 4 times in a row and you just get your HP back because you didn't get hit.
Yeah. Like, all right, I'm leaving this battle with more HP, even though I'm using the move that drains my HP.
Yeah.
Or
if, like, I really love that they did that, and then even when you get the Buster Sword, if you kill enemies with like the Buster Sword heavy attacks, you get HP and MP back, or maybe it's just AP and MP.
Like in the midst of battle or after it?
Yes, in the like per enemy kill.
Oh, okay.
You
Okay.
actually do get stuff back. Let me again. I still have the game up just so I can fact check
Just so you
myself
can reference
here.
stuff. Yeah, it's good that you do because most
So
of
I
my
can
screens
fact
are
check.
taken.
Where is it? Necrosmos. Yeah. Now with a bunch of swords, Zack gained Necrosmos. Necrosmos restores a little bit of MP and AP every time Zack defeats an enemy with attack or abilities while in the stance.
Cool.
So
Yeah,
you're in that stance. You do high jump. You kill that enemy. Cool. You got a little bit of MP and AP back for it.
Yeah, that's awesome. This game does so much well. Like it just does
With
a great
its
job.
gameplay,
And,
yeah. Like
yeah.
I was honestly
Whoa! What do you mean? You don't like
surprised.
Genesis? You shut your mouth. You don't like Genesis. Just kidding.
If I speak, like with its, I was honestly really kind of blown away by how much better the gameplay looked, which is why I decided to even get the game in the first place. As I looked at gameplay, I'm going, this looks so much better. This looks like FF7 Remake. Hang on, I might want to get this.
I mean, that's kind of what pulled me into was the revamped combat system. Oh, if I was going to play the game at any point in time, it was going to be with the remaster. And the way that they completely redid the combat system here just pulled me in more than anything else. I was like, I'm getting this and I'm streaming this, and I'm super excited for it. And King, was it like, I imagine for you, it was more so like a purchase of, because of the game meant so much to you, it like pulled you into the Final Fantasy universe that you almost felt entitled to get it. I could be completely wrong on that. You could.
Yeah, I mean, basically, yeah.
Yeah. It's like, I need to get this to re-experience it the way,
Yeah.
Because I could totally empathize with that as well. Like if, I don't know, SA2 remaster came out, I'd probably get that, even if it looked like shit. I don't know. I would still feel indebted to get it. But yeah. Cool. So next on the list of gameplay is we can probably get more in depth in the DMW system.
Oh yeah.
So before we get super in depth into this, what are our thoughts on this system, period? King K, I'll start with you on that one.
I think that the DMW, the thing about it is that I enjoy its use as a narrative tool through the gameplay a lot. In terms of it being like Zack is learning from all these people how to be a better soldier, basically. And it like kind of, it helps through gameplay interactions bond you more with Zack as a person, that he just values these friendships so much that he's like learning things from them, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, some of it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like you can just pull out like a fucking limit, but like, you know, but it's like the idea there is that he's like learning from other people.
Yeah.
Like his journey is as much about the people he meets along the way as it is about him. And it's less that it's a good gameplay system on its own and more that it fuels a lot of the story beats that will happen later with it. And so it's kind of hard for me to imagine the game without it existing because of that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like seems like a system that was introduced for narrative purposes, basically. And I think that it works really well to further those goals and leads to, it's part of the reason the ending hits so hard as it does. So.
Oh, god damn it, dude. I just remember my recent stream of it and seeing the DMW fucking breakdown and then hearing Aerith's hello, and I was like, fuck you, game. Fuck you. Don't make me cry right now. You think it was implemented because of narrative?
Yeah, I mean, it could be that they were just like, we want some fun, wacky slot machine, but like, I don't know. Like, it seems to me because of the way they used it in the ending and how it like interlinks with Zack as a person and him like just being a naturally friendly person to be around, that people are like kind of drawn to him in that way, that he becomes this legendary figure almost. Just because, I mean, I'll make no secret in saying that Zack is like one of my favorite characters in fiction, So like, it kind of, the DMW to me exemplifies parts of his personality like that. It like heightens the things I like about him. And the fact that they use it the way they do in the ending, it seems to me like it was made for narrative purposes to like make the gameplay fit better into the story they were trying to tell, basically. And I think for that, it works very well.
I don't know if I believe that it was made for narrative purposes. I believe that it works perfectly for narrative purposes, but it's because I don't know. I think that they could have established. And it's really hard to say which came first, the chicken or the egg, right? Because you could say that he could just be thinking about these things, like it coming to his brain, like memories could have still been a theme even without the DMW. But you're right in the fact that it lends itself so well narratively in all of the battles. Okay, not all of the battles, but you know what I mean. Like, it's such a big part of all of them that it totally makes sense that could be the case, where it's like any part of the big battle, like his emotions were heightened by this person now. You know what? You might be right. You might be right. The more I think about it, the more I'm like, yeah, you know what? It could have been implemented completely because of the narrative.
If they didn't use it the way they did in the ending, I might not say that as strongly, but whether or not they intended for it, that was the result. So
yeah.
Doesn't really matter to me if they like intended for it to be like that or not. That's kind of what resulted and what happened. So
yeah. What do you think about the system as a whole, ST?
So I have nothing really to say about like its narrative weight, because y'all just kind of went over that pretty well. I don't have anything else to add to that. In terms of gameplay, however, you know, that's kind of where most of my talk comes from for this game is gameplay and less about its narrative. So the original, like we mentioned, whenever something would happen with the DMW, like something big, like, okay, you're getting this you're getting this character matching up on the slots. Game stops, it's paused, watch this for like 15 seconds. Oh, you didn't get anything. Too bad. Go back to the game. Oh, you got something. All right, I'm waiting another 30 seconds, baby. I'm just like, please, I want to play the video game, you know?
Yeah.
But here, that never happens. It's all just, the top left is its zone. It's doing its thing. It's staying in its lane. Have at it, Chief. Go to town. I don't care. It just helps me now. All it does is really help me, unless you get a dud, which is hilarious. I'm not sure if that's ever happened to either of you.
Oh, yeah, you know what? That has happened to me, where I get all three of a character face and you don't get anything from it. And I'm like, why? What happened?
I mean like an actual dud. Like, I think it involves Kate Sith or something like that. Like, you get a dud and Zack gets blown up. He's stunned.
What?
Yeah. I'm like, oh, that's cool. He gets blown up or he gets hit with something.
That sounds like it would be a Kate Sith thing, totally.
Yeah, and I'm just like, oh, okay, thanks, game. Like, it happened to me like twice in all of my play. It happened like twice.
Wow.
So it's not something that happens often, but it is a thing that happens.
I never got that unlucky, I guess.
So I think that's kind of funny. I've never been killed from it, so maybe if I was, I would be like, I would think it was less funny, but actually, no. Yeah. I would think it was probably hysterical if I got killed because of it. It's, oh, yeah, Crisis Core, baby. But yeah, from a gameplay view in Crisis Core Reunion, it's significantly better in every way. It's just better outright.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off. If you want, you can finish your thought.
I was just going to say, I feel like my little prediction for Rebirth, if Zack is a playable character in the game, which I think there's a good chance he's going to be, I'm curious if they're going to give him the DMW or not. If they would bother to actually incorporate that system all over again, just for his small bit of gameplay.
We have a section about it in this podcast.
If they were to do that, I would be like, all right, That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think that'd be awesome. I'd be pretty hype about that.
Yeah.
If they were just like, you play as Zack for like one chapter, and here's the DMW.
If they don't let me play as Zack, I'll riot.
I mean, I imagine they. Let's not get full into Rebirth here, but just based on what we've seen, I think we
have a
would at least
before we can get full into Rebirth at the end of the podcast. I literally have it written in if you want to talk about Zack and Rebirth.
Oh, all right. Well, we'll talk about that there.
That's a topic we have because obviously we're all thinking about Rebirth still. It's on the mind.
DMW. I have nothing more to really say. It's just like in the original, it felt like a hindrance a lot of the time from a gameplay perspective, but here it just does its thing, and I get benefits from it. Cool. Yeah. I wish life was like that. Like.
Yeah.
I wish I randomly got invincible at life.
It feels good to me. Like, it feels in this game, I would rather it be there than it not be there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it only adds to the experience in my mind now. Before, when it was like, when the combat system wasn't as smooth or you couldn't skip the cutscenes, then yeah, I would think that it gets in the way. It's more of a hindrance than it is a positive thing. But now, it's like it's adding so much context to the relationships that Zack gets throughout the story. If you've already seen a cutscene, or even if you haven't seen the cutscene, if you want to, it gives you the option to skip it, which is much better than having no option to skip it. So it doesn't have to break the pace of the combat for you. But it can also serve as a break from the combat, from just like... or like a stress reliever almost from the combat if you happen to get one of those cutscenes. It's like, oh, I can breathe for a second as I get this now. Because a lot of the battles you actually have, at least in hard mode, can get pretty stressful, and it can feel like, oh my god, the game is like giving me it's throwing me a bone here and letting me breathe for 2 seconds, and maybe, ooh, am I getting a Kate Sith one? Oh, I get lucky stars, which means, oh, I'm gonna get through this battle like much easier now.
Thank goodness. Actually, one of the best ones is lucky stars.
Yeah, and what's cool too is, like, we didn't go over it when we talked about materia, but you can use certain materia once you get to Gongaga. Where you can where you can throw those on, and you have a higher chance of getting. It's like as if your heightens were your emotions were heightened by that character. Each of the limit breaks that you get, you can throw materia on for. So for me, you can get like I bought like lucky stars because you get a ridiculous amount of buffs, and your DMW is heightened anyway, like the highest it can possibly go at heaven or whatever it says. Heavenly, so you get even more and more, so you can get through those battles.
Lucky Stars is probably the best one because it, on hard mode at least, it gets to a point where the damage that the other ones do, it just isn't enough to really warrant it, like over your own normal attacks.
Yeah.
When you get Lucky Stars, it's just like, oh, well, now my normal attacks are doing even more, and I'm not flinching, or I might be invincible. I would rather just get that every time.
Yeah, because you're doing more damage with your loadout than you are the limit breaks at that point. But with Lucky Stars, it's always helpful, right?
Yeah.
In the same way that like Kate Sith, Healing Wave, yep, and Kate Siths as well.
Yeah.
Whatever
Kate
that one
Siths is actually broken.
Yeah. And then you get the what is it? What's the one that levels up your materia?
Oh, Moogle,
yeah, the Moogle one's really nice too, because you can just master all your materia if you get like a level 5, whatever you have. It's like, oh shoot, that saves me from a lot of grinding. I don't know. It always adds to the experience in the battle system now, rather than take away. I really liked the DMW system actually now, and I was afraid of it, like going into it after the stuff that I heard about the original, but they improved on it so much. I don't know what else I can really say about it. But narratively, from a gameplay perspective and everything, I just think it just adds a lot, and it's also really cool. We didn't go over it to see the summons as well. The summon cutscenes in the game are really cool. They're really fun.
They were already cool in the PSP version.
Were they?
They're even better. Yeah.
What's the
like? They're pretty much the same cutscenes.
Zero? Was it Neo Bahamut? I can't remember.
No, Bahamut Fury.
Bahamut Fury. Oh my
Bahamut
god,
Fury.
that thing is crazy looking. It fucking shoots out all of the pegs on its wings, circles around the moon, and shoots a fucking laser beam through it to hit the Earth. That is the coolest shit ever. That is so awesome.
Sonic Universe in shambles after that one with the moon, bro.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my god.
Eclipse Cannon, who?
Yeah, who needs it? Oh man. Oh, it's Zeta Flare. Is that what it is? It uses?
I think so, yeah.
Or not Zeta Flare.
I don't know. There's like so many different Bahamut Flare things. It was like, yeah, it's a big laser, it blows stuff up. Cool, I'm happy with it.
Yeah, I don't know. All I know is it looked cool. The there's that one that I like a lot. The Chocobo was so cute. To just walk up and do a little dance with the Chocobo.
My personal favorite one, which I think is new in this version, is the Tonberry.
Oh, I didn't even get that one because I haven't played the 10 side missions yet.
Murderous Thrust, you get the Tonberry, and the Tonberry, once you like summon it, it's going to attack Zack, and Zack like backs up. It's like waving his arms in front of him, like no, wait,
no.
And the Tonberry runs at him, trips over a rock. The knife goes flying through the air over Zack's head and hits the enemy behind him.
Oh my god!
It's like the goofiest thing.
This game is full of humor, honestly. I think even a lot of the story, which we'll get to, a lot of those cutscenes, there's just a lot of humor in it, and I honestly think it's purposeful rather than trying to be serious in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. It's cool to see. Oh man, so that's your favorite. What's your favorite, King?
I guess Bahamut's pretty cool. I don't know, like I'm trying to think back. They're all pretty like standard FF summons. So like I always like Bahamut.
Yeah.
He's cool.
Did you get like the Bahamut that I was talking about? The Bahamut Fury?
I don't know. Whatever one you get from killing Bahamut, I think, right?
Okay, so so there are two Bahamuts, actually. There's the regular Bahamut in the game, which you fight in the story. Then there's also the second Bahamut in the story that you can get from doing later side missions. That's the one I was talking about. The first Bahamut you fight is in Benora. And then you can fight him and get him. That one's really cool too, where he flies super high in the sky and he shoots the ball down to Earth. The second one shoots a giant laser beam through the moon. It's so sick. Yeah, those are really fun. And then just seeing, even if it's just like tiny character interactions between Zack and the other characters, it's still just nice to have that context in those relationships, like I've said. So that's really cool. Next thing I have written down here is difficulty, so I guess this will vary. I think we've kind of already covered this one. Yeah, so I don't think we really have to go through that. Next one I have is map exploration and environment design. So this is something that I don't think Final Fantasy games are particularly great at most of the time when it comes to like dungeon design or map design or things like that. So I'm curious as to what you guys think when it comes to the map design of this game. Not just how it looks, I mean actually like going through it and...
Well, that was probably the reason I stopped doing side missions, other than the repetitive nature of them. Because you can only see the same place so many times before I just get fucking sick of it.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about the missions is that there's like 5 environments.
Yeah.
And they're all like, you walk through a couple rooms and there's some enemies and then it's over. So it's kind of like...
And
I don't know. That was part of the reason I stopped doing side missions altogether.
How about for the main game? Because they
I mean,
vary.
It's For the most part, it's very similar. There's like maybe a time where like you get a sniper rifle for some.
Oh my god, I
fucking
forgot
reason.
about that. Yeah.
But like for the most part, it's like either you're fighting a boss or like I think there's like a dungeon or two. They're not like it's like I think the best part of the game is hanging around Midgar because they're like you can go talk to people and like there's some like plot lines that run if you go talk to side people and those are kind of cute. But yeah. The
I
actual
agree.
missions, I don't know, but like the like hub Midgar hub is kind of cool. I like you can keep up with people and do little side quests for them. There's like weird ass fan clubs for Angeal and
Oh
Sephiroth.
yeah. I got the Sephiroth one in my playthrough.
That one
You
always
can't-
amuses me because one of them like they just dissolve and have to get absorbed by another one.
That's the Genesis
funny.
ones.
Yeah,
They said they're like selling apples or apple jewelry or something to get enough money to absorb the other one. Yeah, I like that. I agree with you. I think the Midgar portion and talking to all the people there. I think the reason why it's so entertaining is not only because there is comedy in it, but it's also world building for Final Fantasy VII and in a way that entertains me. The reason why I even have this segment in here because it's not too interesting like by itself, but I feel like there's kind of something like new introduced in each of the environments that you go to in the main game, and in almost the same way that the original game tries to give you a new mini game to do. Like there are so many mini games in Final Fantasy VII, which is carried over in Final Fantasy VII Remake as well, where you have all these like little things like I'm playing darts now or whatever. In Crisis Core, one of your first missions is like slicing bullets in half, and like there's a lot of weird stuff. I know in Nibelheim, the map design over there is kind of interesting because you can like talk to some kid and it's a side quest for you to get these like 7 wonders of Midgar, right? Which forces you to go explore.
I did all that.
Yeah, that forces you to go explore the Nibelheim Manor and stuff like that. And then in Medeoheim, you have to go on like this sneaky mission to go get some treasure. So like that's a new thing while doing squats to keep your temperature up as a reference to the original game when you're climbing the icicle mountains and stuff. And then obviously you already brought it up, the sniper rifle section of the game.
Yeah.
But I have this section in here also because of the last area of the game is a huge dungeon, which came out of nowhere, I felt. It's not a super complex one, but it's one where you have to go around getting like these 7 materia to open a final door to go fight Genesis, and you go to like these 3 different areas. But a lot of it looks the same to me, so it can get a little bit confusing. And this is probably my biggest gripe with Final Fantasy VII Remake as well, is like the level design of like the stuff it forces you to do in like Sector 5, going to that reactor and stuff. I don't know, ST, what do you think about that? I've been talking about this for a little bit.
So, yeah, the level design is, I think, the weakest part of the game from, just purely talking on a gameplay level. The level design, it's very... feels like you're just going from point A to point B, which isn't a bad thing. Like, there's nothing wrong with linearity in of itself. Like, it's not like you can't have amazing level design, but also have it be linear. One of my favorite games of all time, Resident Evil 4, does just this. That game is linear, but the level design in it is so good that it doesn't really matter. It's so engaging, and the things the game has you do, you're never bored in that game. The level design is so good and ever-changing that there's never a dull or boring moment. You're never doing the same thing twice in a game like RE4. But with this, from a linear design perspective, because the level design in this game is linear, and having to go through all the side missions, and you're seeing the same 5 locations like King said, and I just want to pull my hair out because how many times I need to be in this dang cave going through these same hallways and just hugging the wall so I can get all these chests and ignore these encounters for the
that's
30th
the other
millionth
thing.
time.
For those of you who don't know, you can hug the walls to avoid random encounters, which is really helpful for side missions to try to break up some of the monotony, which doesn't sound like a good part of the gameplay.
The random encounters aren't even that random. They're actually quite predictable.
No,
once
you're
the
right,
hallway expands a little bit, oh, there's an encounter right there.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
always on that bridge in
Shinra
the cave. That's my least favorite one. That's my least favorite side mission
base,
map.
You will only get an encounter there in an open room. If you're in a hallway, you're good. You can run in the middle of it back and forth all you want. You're not getting an encounter there.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the level design, it's very repetitive. It gets tiresome. And even in the main game, outside of Midgar, which, you know, before FF7 Remake, that was one of the coolest parts about this game, was to see Midgar expanded upon a bit more. Be able to see more parts of it you didn't get to see in the original, or have it reimagined from the original game.
Yeah, this is the first
which
time...
was all, you know, just pre-rendered stuff.
Yeah, like in the original game, you didn't really get to see much of the upper plates other than the first mission after the bombing, the reactor bombing.
Mm-hmm.
But in Crisis Core, that's the first time you ever really got to explore the upper plates. It's a really cool thing from a world building perspective.
Yeah. So, but now, like part of that novelty is lost because, you know, we're looking at this after
post remake,
after post remake. So that novelty is lost. But Midgar probably has, like, Midgar and the Shinra building, like the best looking areas, I think. But the areas throughout the main game, like, yeah, you're going from point A to point B. And again, that's not an issue of itself, but it doesn't feel that interesting. It's just kind of open hallway after open hallway, occasionally with a chest or materia you can find. You randomly cut 10 missiles in half, which is hilarious, but okay, you know. And then you hear DeGenesis squabble. You're wondering why Zack hasn't kicked him between the legs yet, and then you're off to somewhere again, and okay, cool, the game continues. Let me do another 30 more missions going through the same monotonous hallways as I'm wondering, why am I doing this? Oh, right, the combat's really fun. That's
it's like, why am I doing this? Playing. Oh, because I'm addicted to it. I'm addicted to like everything else the gameplay so it's like, is giving me.
The main part that does get tiresome for me is the level design. It's very bare bones, I think.
Yeah, I never really got bored in the main story, but I definitely did in the side missions. It's because it's fairly
quick. Like, you get through the areas fairly quick, and you are seeing new areas. Like, you know, you go to, like, the snow field, like, before you fight Genesis for the first time. You're like, oh, this is new. You get to see this area from the original Final Fantasy VII. A lot of it is the novelty of you're seeing these areas from the original Final Fantasy VII re-envisioned.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of keeps you engaged as like a fan of the original game. You're like, oh, this is really cool to see these areas reimagined, right?
Yeah.
But
also, like, some of those areas weren't in the side missions at all. So, like, Modeoheim, for example, there's never a side mission with Modeoheim.
No.
There's never a side mission in the final maze before you fight Genesis. No. There's never a side mission in Benora. There's never a side mission in Wutai, I don't think. I think they do all the Wutai stuff in random caves. So, like, that stuff was all new and only happened once, you know?
Yeah.
So it never bored me.
That stuff is really cool.
Plus, they had those, like, weird gameplay styles mixed in with it, which was enough to keep me engaged, even if it was super linear. Whenever I did go off, I always got rewarded with a chest for looking around the corner, you know what I mean? So,
like, again, there's nothing wrong with linearity in of itself. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, I know
Mother
that there's
3.
a lot of people.
Mother 3 is Mother 3 is my favorite game of all time.
Yeah,
it's a very linear game.
There's a lot of people nowadays who think that something being linear means it's bad. And like this advent of open world games, I guess, but that's just it couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah, definitely not. As long as you're entertained throughout the linearity, I feel like if you're given enough choice even still, or you're able to experience enough through the linear gameplay, then it's fine. You have to, as a player, feel like you have some sort of control over something. You know what I mean? And King and I, we talked about this a lot when we were talking about Final Fantasy II, right? Like, we brought it up. One of the only times where we felt we had control over the linear aspect of the game was our favorite part of the game, right? So it's like, does the game give you enough choice throughout that linearity, or give you enough to experience or entertain you through it? That determines if it's good or bad. Just a game being open world in itself doesn't all of a sudden make it a good game. I mean, that's a ridiculous statement. I don't think anyone truly believes that.
Oh, that's not the statement I was trying to say that I've seen others say, and just
I know. I'm saying, like, the thing that you've seen, that you've heard others say is what I was saying.
Yeah, I've seen this notion, not from, okay, I said a lot of people, but that's a bit of an over-exaggeration. It's more of like some people. I've seen some people say that linearity bad, but I just don't agree, because,
I think it just comes from a misunderstanding of, like, what linearity it is in the first place, right?
Yeah, I guess. Again, if there's anyone that might be watching this that think that linearity bad, please, I encourage you to play a game like RE4. That game will enlighten you.
Or Mother 3, or Final Fantasy VII Remake, which is a linear game but still a great experience, or even the original Final Fantasy VII, which is linear for the first, like, half of the game. Most RPGs, you know what I mean? I don't know. Like, most action games, even, there's linearity in, like, a lot of aspects of some game. You're given choices along the way to change your experience.
Yeah, like, I mean, Devil May Cry 5 is another example of a linear game.
Of course,
start at the beginning of the level, you get to the end. But still a great experience. But yeah, I don't really have anything else to say along the level design department. Like, I do think a game like FF7 Remake, to keep let's stay on topic of the same genres. Me talking about Resident Evil here. That game is linear, like you said, but it does have a lot of things in its level design that keeps you more engaged. Like, say, the sewer had some elements of that, where you would have to, or even while you're above Midgar, and you gotta, like, factor in the fans and balance on these things and all that. And it helps also that you have the characters always, talking to each other.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that got me through 7 Remake's linear. Oh, it's not even that it's linear level design, it's just that it's kind of like, again, I don't think Final Fantasy has ever had really, really good map design. There are a few games that I've played.
Not in my experience, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. The original 7 is pretty good. 9 is all right. The first Final Fantasy I kind of enjoy its map design.
FF2?
No, that is the worst map design of any game I've ever played ever.
What do you mean?
That's the worst. In 7R, though, you have all the characters, like, bantering with each other. That's the thing that kept me smiling through, like, balancing over things and walking and just going through this very, I don't know. Like I said, level design and FF7R is not my favorite. I'm
hoping that Rebirth has less of it, because a lot of the slow walking parts and going in between these tight corridors, and Final Fantasy VII Remake was like, oh, yep, this is a PS4 game. You gotta load these areas, baby.
Well, if you guys haven't played it yet, Intermission, when you play as Yuffie, doesn't have any of that. There's no, like, sneaking in between things. It's PS5 only, so you don't have to worry about that loading.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that with Rebirth, we get less of that.
Yeah, and also Yuffie is probably my favorite character to play in Remake, so if you haven't played that yet, and you're listening to this, and you've played Remake, go play Intermission. Okay, everyone, it's time to get into story. So, What's interesting to me about this portion of the podcast is that all three of us have come to the game, as we said in the introductions, at completely different times. The FF7 universe came to us at very different times in our lives. We started learning about the games in completely different entries and whatnot. So I think the story and what the legacy of Final Fantasy VII means to each one of us is going to be different. So, to start off, what do you guys think about the overall narrative of this game? Before we get into, like, the opinions of characters and whatnot, just Zack's story from start to end, and, like, what it's like to be in Soldier, and the world building and everything like that. What do you guys think? Whoever wants to go for it, go for it.
Well, it's kind of tough because, like I said earlier, Zack's like he makes the story for me. So, like, I think having the story follow his journey was pretty smart for a prequel. And it's like, I don't know. I guess it's hard to say, like, when you separate those kinds of things, like the characters from the narrative.
Yeah,
because it's like very, for me, it's like I don't have a lot of, I kind of do now, but like when I was first playing the game, I didn't really have a lot of context as to what was going on or why. When I play it nowadays, it's kind of like I understand these beats because I like know what happens in 7, and this game kind of spoils what happens in it anyway, so it's kind of like, I don't know.
We don't have to separate them. That was just like how I originally had it. If it makes it easier to talk about, just going for both of them at once, then we can do that. That's completely fine.
It is a bit more difficult to like talk about narrative without characters
because like the thing is that like the events of the story are not as interesting to me as like the fact that Zack is going through them and how that changes him. Like, I think one of the coolest things about the game for me is watching Zack. It's not as though he changes necessarily, but like watching him grow, you know, where he starts out under Angeal and he right away is like kind of has an infectious personality that you just kind of, you can't help but love the dude. He just has like such an upbeat attitude and he's ready to do fucking anything, even when life hits him in the face repeatedly with a bat, you know, like
with a nail bat.
And it's not like he doesn't go through like an arc of like there's a low point. It's mostly like he grows and kind of adopts parts of Angeal's personality, or like I said before, he kind of adopts parts of people's personality from across the game and morphs into this like true soldier by the end of it, like this true icon and hero. Like, it's one of the reasons he's one of my favorite characters in fiction. It's just like, I don't know. It's like the story manages through all its highs and lows, the like extremely silly moments that it has, and like weird ass plot developments that are like I still don't really understand the full extent of like some of this shit, to be honest, like with Genesis, and like I don't know what the fuck they were going for. I think that they probably like,
I think they know what they were going for.
I have no idea what's going on with like Genesis and like the cells, the Genova shit. I don't know, man.
The cells.
It's like funny. That stuff to me is like in the background. I don't really care. It's very
secondary. It's like it's in your face, but you're right. Like the game would be nothing if it wasn't for Zack's growth. That's what's front and center. And it's almost as if you're experiencing with him everything that's taking place. It's like more than any other character in fiction, I feel like I am in Zack's place when I play Crisis Core. I don't really know how to explain that any better. He's just like one of the most relatable characters that I've ever. I think that Zack and I are very like different people, but that I still completely relate to him in how he reacts to everything in the story. You know,
it's difficult.
In fiction,
it's always been difficult for me to explain why I love Zack so much. It's just kind of like a thing that you feel. He's just very like he's obviously like very upbeat and very like charismatic, especially with his old voice actor. I like his new voice actor too. It's just I'm fond of the old because I grew up with it, so like I'm used to it. But he's just I think the fact that he goes into the ending with like a smile on his face, even though he knows he's probably gonna fucking die. He's just like this very, I don't know. There's like a strength to him in pretty much everything that he does. It's like I don't know. It's not like he's an OP kind of character. It's not like he fucking dies in the end. But like, I guess he's not like a Mary Sue type. You know what I mean? It's not like that where he has no faults or anything. But like, it's more like he has like a strength that's just very infectious and like very admirable, and I just love following him. Yeah, and he kind of make or breaks the game for me, because everything else that happens in it is kind of like, I'm interested in some of the side characters that I know from 7, like Tifa and Cloud show up and stuff like that, and I like watching those relationships develop. But there's other stuff like, with the Genova cells and Genesis and like the Lazard. I don't know, man. Like the stuff like that's just kind of like they were clearly having a field day trying to expand that lore. I don't really care about it, but yeah, that's kind of the gist of it for me.
Okay. I think that the closest character that I also really like from another universe that I could relate Zack to would be Sonic the Hedgehog.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they both have this their power of resilience against the odds, no matter what. Their ability to kind of go in and hold their principles. That's what it is. It's their ability to hold their principles against all odds that makes Zack such a strong character. And yes, he becomes one of the most powerful in all of Final Fantasy VII by the end, even though he dies to the Shinra military anyway. So, I mean, he is pretty OP if you look at him taking down the goddess of the live stream and the side missions. But, yeah, man, I if it wasn't for Zack in this game, nothing would be human. Like, Zack is the most human part of the game. When I go through it, it's like I'm listening to the other characters talk, and I'm like, "Are you for real? Like, are you a real? What were you written by? Were you written by AI? Were you written by like aliens? I'm so confused."
Like sometimes when Genesis would start talking, I would have no fucking idea what he was saying to me,
because he's just reciting love lists. He's just reciting like because he's like a poetry drama freak whose mind is
stuff like that. Is like, I love the game, but holy shit, sometimes I just want to punch Genesis in the face.
So, only sometimes.
Yeah, only some. I mean, okay, I will say
I like his scenes with Sephiroth when he's in Angeal, like early on in the game. Like, I don't always. Hate
I liked it when Sephiroth told him to eat shit. That was really cool.
You mean the cutscene you're talking about? You mean
sorry.
Like they're? No, it's okay. I mean, I get where you're coming from. Totally. You're talking about the cutscene with them battling, like when Sephiroth is reminiscing. Yeah. So what's cool about this is like, and a lot of people hate the fact that Genesis shows up during the Nibelheim incident and stuff like that, or the fact that like Genesis and Angeal even exist. I think that the execution wasn't perfect, right? But overall, I think that their inclusion is actually, it helped me understand Sephiroth's corruption more than if they weren't there. Because the whole thing with Sephiroth is that the reason why he is the antithesis to Cloud is that when Sephiroth loses his identity, he doesn't have friends. He doesn't have anyone around him that loves him, that like is there to keep him on the right path. In fact, like, Angeal is gone at this point. He's dead. Because this soldier stuff, these Genova cells, man, they fuck with your head. Like, Genova literally, like, implants things into your head, wants you to follow her, stuff like that. I mean, you see that even in Cloud. Yeah, exactly. It's like you're just so corrupted, and even being in the soldier program in general and being injected with all this Mako, like, you go insane. I mean, look at fucking, what's his name? Motorcycle Boy in FF7 Remake. Dude's not I mean, that's why they compare soldier to monster so much in the game. Like, they try to really hammer they try to hammer that into you, like the fact that these people are not, like, it's sad what happens to them, essentially, because the entire theme of the game is like Midgar is the enemy, and it just gives more context to that, which is why I love Crisis Core so much. But anyway, I was talking about Sephiroth. Sephiroth can't trust anyone by the time that he gets corrupted. The only person that could possibly bring him back is Zack, and he is past that breaking point, because his only two close friends that he had in his fucked up childhood were Genesis and Angeal, who are also like mental tragedies. Genesis just wanting his cells or whatever so he stops degrading, and blah blah blah, calling him a monster, you know, and then his identity completely breaks and he has no one. And that's the reason why he's such a perfect antagonist for Cloud, who in Final Fantasy VII lost his identity and regained it through the love his friends had for him. Was able to be Cloud Strife. Sephiroth was never Sephiroth again. He is a new entity with Genova. That's what happens in FF7. So I think it gives more context for who Sephiroth is. And a lot of people say that, you know, the Nibelheim incident is ruined because of Genesis and stuff like that. Like, I don't think Genesis needed to be there in that moment. But I do think Genesis and Jill existing at all and giving more context for that definitely enhances the story of FF7 rather than take away from it. That's just my opinion on that. I don't even know where I started with that thought thread. I literally have no idea. Just rambling forever.
I have more opinions to give about Sephiroth than I do Zack. What? I
mean, go for whatever first comes to your mind. This, I mean, I think at this point we're just whatever comes to mind. Just throw it out there about the story and any of the characters.
My thing with Sephiroth is that I do like what Crisis Core does with him, but I don't know if it was really needed in the context of the original Final Fantasy VII. Because in the original Final Fantasy VII, you know, like, Sephiroth feels more like a force of nature, almost, you know? And I was fine with that. I don't think every villain in every piece of fiction now needs to feel like this super relatable guy that I'm like, yeah, I totally get where you're coming from, man. I don't agree with you, but I get you. I don't think so, no. Like, two of my favorite gaming villains are Ganondorf and Albert Wesker, two of which are irredeemable, evil pieces of garbage that have no redeemable bone in their body, even though there are a lot of Zelda fans who try to paint Ganondorf as like a potentially tragic figure. I'm just like, no, he's the literal reincarnation of evil. That's what he is.
Just to cut you off for a second there, I do understand where they're coming from, though, just because of the fact that Ocarina of Time was made before Skyward Sword, and so was Twilight Princess, where you see the fact that Ganondorf was kind of like forced to try to tackle the Hylian Empire.
Doesn't have those qualities.
He didn't go about things the right way. Definitely, like the actions that he took were
I'm not
villainous,
saying that Ganondorf, like, because one of his motivations was, you know, to free the Gerudo from what they were enduring.
Right.
Like, absolutely, 100,000%. But like, by say Twilight Princess, you know, like, no, I'm not feeling sorry for this dude.
No, I don't. I don't feel sorry for Sephiroth either. Like at Final Fantasy VII. I mean, I do because of the Genova shit, but I'm not like when I'm playing through Final Fantasy VII, even with the context of what happened in Crisis Core, I'm not sitting there feeling bad for Sephiroth. You know what I mean? It's just like it. I know where you're coming from too, right? Because obviously I played Final Fantasy VII before I played Crisis Core, and I get that the opinion that you have is one that a lot of people share, where it's like he's a force of nature, and I totally get that. It's just that, like, I guess for me, it's cool to just humanize a lot of characters as well before they get there.
I agree with that. I do.
Yeah. So,
you know, I just think that for a lot of villains, they don't all need to be. They don't have. A lot of people think that villains can only be considered great if they're relatable and things like that, but I think that takes away from that. You can have great villains if they're just, you know, and
pieces of shit, totally,
like an archetypical just evil embodied, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't mind, again, that Sephiroth is further humanized. In fact, I totally get why they did that. And the original did provide like enough details for them to take that route that they did. You know, because it's not like you can't see that Sephiroth was once humanized in the original, because I think you can.
Yeah,
you know, if you read up on stuff like in the Shinra Manor and all that, right? I just don't think it was necessary.
But like, also, how do you tell the tale of what it was like to be in Shinra without also being around Sephiroth? Because if we're going to take that route, it's like, does Crisis Core need to exist? And that's like
that goes into what I was going to say. Where like, you know, in a lot of things in Final Fantasy VII's compilation, I don't think it needed to be. Like, I don't think we needed Advent Children, right?
Sure, yeah.
Like, you know, like I was totally okay with Final Fantasy VII's ending being what it was, an open-ended ending where you weren't sure exactly what happened beyond like what we see with Red 13 at the very end, right? I was okay with that. And then, you know, we got Advent Children anyway. And I'm going, okay, well, this is now what it is. This is how the story is canonically. But sometimes I think, did we really need that? You know?
Yeah, it's a weird topic, right? Because
it is.
Some of the writers, like obviously Sakaguchi, and I brought this up before, I believe. Hironobu Sakaguchi, who is the person who pretty much ran Squaresoft. Yeah, the father of Final Fantasy, the person who ran Squaresoft, hates prequels and sequels, doesn't want anything to do with them, believes that the experience of the game should just be left as is, which is why Final Fantasy VII is left with that open ending. But plenty of the other artists on Final Fantasy VII did not feel the same way, which is why later you had things like Crisis Core, because like they weren't even able to expand on the things they wanted to expand on within the game itself because of its development cycle. So it's like, do I just let this be, or can I like be an artist and do this thing? Because so many of this team wants to also do this. So like,
especially in Japan's culture, where it's a lot of like, there's a lot of respect that goes into honoring what the creator wanted with their project, right? That's why a game like Final Fantasy IX, it barely gets touched upon, because that was Sakaguchi's like swan song Final Fantasy, right?
Even though a bunch of the people who worked on it actually want to make a sequel or a prequel or something like that.
Yeah, they want to do more with it. But...
Yeah, they want to do more with it, which is, I mean, we might get a remake of that game. We might get a cartoon series or whatever the hell.
Cartoon series would be cute.
Yeah.
But yeah, to go back to what I was saying with Sephiroth, I don't dislike humanizing him. I don't. I'm more of a, I take it or leave it, you know? I was fine with how Sephiroth was in the original game. I didn't feel like I had to learn more about him. Do I like learning more about him? Yeah, I do. But, you know, I'm not like, I think this was needed to make his character even better or something like that, you know? I thought he was already great as it was.
Yeah, for me, it's like, it's not my favorite part about Sephiroth. Like, when Sephiroth got announced into Smash, it wasn't like, like the reason why they just pretty much showed him being a badass is because that's why everyone likes Sephiroth, because he's just a fucking badass force of nature, one of the most influential villains in all of gaming, period. Probably like top 4 with Bowser, Ganon, Dr. Eggman, and Sephiroth, right? Like these are the big 4 villains in all of gaming. Yeah, and it wasn't because like he's a humanized character, but when I played Crisis Core and I understand more context for why he got the way he did, it didn't take away from him also being a force of nature in FF7 and in his other appearances. You know what I mean? It's just like more context to what happened, which like for me is important because I'm a character analyst. Like I go into the reasons why people do things,
and it's important for me too because I'm in the same boat with you. I am a character analyst myself. You know, I love analyzing characters, and
it's like the psychology of why they're doing the way that what domino fell for you to be able, get to this point.
And I like the point you brought up with Sephiroth. How we get to see how he became the Sephiroth he is in Final Fantasy VII, where Sephiroth the person is kind of gone. Yeah. And it's just Sephiroth, the force of nature, no longer Sephiroth, the human being.
Yeah, that Sephiroth, that human doesn't exist anymore. Yeah. Whatever happened in between, whether it was Genova like breaking his mind or like him choosing to throw away his identity, I think it's explained in like some novels or whatever the hell.
Yeah. And I think that's really cool, and I genuinely do enjoy that stuff.
Yeah.
It's just, in some ways, like, I don't know, I feel like some people use it as a way to try to make Sephiroth seem sympathetic. And when I think of Sephiroth, I don't think sympathetic.
The hashtag Sephiroth did nothing wrong, please cradle me daddy crew on Twitter. Is that what you're referring to?
When I think of Sephiroth, I don't think sympathetic or anything like that. I think like, no, he's, like, I know why he's evil, but ultimately he's an evil piece of shit, and Cloud has to stop him.
It's tragic what happened to Sephiroth and the world that he was born into, and the life that he had. But that doesn't take away from. It's a reason for his actions, but it doesn't take away from.
It doesn't absolve
him
of his sins.
Yeah, of course not. Yeah. ST and I have been talking about this for a while. Do you have any thoughts on Sephiroth at all, King?
Here's the problem. Yeah. I have yet to finish Final Fantasy VII, and even though I know everything that happens,
okay, that's it. We're stopping this right now. We're calling it closed.
You go back there and finish.
Get the hell off your ass and play the game.
Look, I got to the fucking Chocobo racing, and I got like below the gold
disc
sponsor, and then something killed me in the desert, and I had to redo Chocobo racing.
Skill issue, bro.
It was shitty. I hated it. As soon as you leave Midgar, that game goes to shit. I didn't finish it. I hate everything outside of Midgar.
I think that the pacing of Final Fantasy VII, and I bring this up as like a huge flaw of the original, is the pacing of Final Fantasy VII does definitely fall off a cliff after the original Midgar section, and it kind of feels like you're going from one place to the next. Just to see what happens with the characters, but that it's not very fast-paced at all compared to Midgar. So I don't think it goes to shit definitely after Midgar. I definitely think like later, like once you get past the stuff that you're going through right now, King K, it definitely like the pacing picks up and it's a lot of fun. But I understand your problems with it as well. The problem
for me is that I don't know. I'm gonna get to it, but I lack context for. Because I know Sephiroth, like, he summons the meteor, he kills Aerith, but I am not, like, well versed enough to know. Like, I haven't seen all his lines of dialogue. I'm not, like. For me, Sephiroth is, like, this iconic villain, and, like, it's kind of interesting to see what his origins were here. And that's kind of where it ends, because, you have, like, the battle with him. And then he kind of fucks off for the rest of the game. So it's like, it's interesting to see his relationship with Angeal and Genesis. And I think that's probably where I cared the most about those 3 characters, is when they were interacting. But I just don't have much to say about those characters too much. Or at least Sephiroth.
Yeah, so it's definitely hard to like know where someone would be coming from when they talk about Sephiroth, the force of nature, in the OG FF7, just because, well, even still, you can kind of understand, if you've played up to the point that you have, then you understand that he's more of like a shark in the water kind of character than he is.
Yeah, it's cool. He kills the big snake and, like, kills the president, right?
Yeah.
So, he's, like, cool. They build him up pretty well.
Yeah.
I like him.
It's like, they build him up as like he's so much more powerful than you are, and this and that. Just building up the force of nature that he appears to be in the original game. How he's portrayed.
He's one of my favorite villains because of how he's portrayed between 7 and even in Advent Children. You get what we're saying, because you saw Advent Children after you played Crisis Core,
yes.
right? Where Sephiroth's just like so much more fucking powerful than you. He's just a badass force of nature that, like, he's just there to fuck with you.
Well, he always feels. I think one of the things I admire about him is that, outside of when he goes insane, obviously, he always feels like, and this is kind of ironic, I guess, because he's taken over by Genova shit, but, like, it does kind of feel like he has a sense of control, almost. Like, he's just kind of like, whenever he'd show up in, like, I guess I have more experience with Remake, and I don't really know what the fuck's going on with Sephiroth in Remake, to be honest, but, like, whenever he shows up, I get kind of excited about it, because every time he's there, his screen presence is like, he knows everything that's going on, and he's gonna fuck you up and say some weird shit and leave, because it's like he almost has this, like, arcane knowledge. Like, I don't know, he's just so fascinating. Yeah. Like, he's always.
It feels the same way. It feels the same way in the original. It feels the same way, but like, for me, the way they did it in Remake is, for me, I feel the same way that I did playing the original, because Sephiroth, yes. Even though Sephiroth shows up a lot early, which I don't always like once I replayed it and I understood the context of what was going on, it was like, oh, this is like the same way that I feel when I played the original game with Sephiroth. It's like he knows so much more and is in so much more control than any of us think that we know about
when I
7
first
Remake.
When I first played through Remake and I see Sephiroth like every fucking 10 minutes. I'm like, what? Go somewhere else, dude. Leave me alone. Why are you here like an annoying grandma? Leave me alone.
But on the same token, did it not feel like in the original it was the same thing? He didn't always show up.
In the original, you see like glimpses and like peaks of him. You don't see him like really.
You don't see him visualized, but he appears in Cloud's mind. It's like him talking to him all throughout Midgar within the first like 4 hours. You had like, if it's not always. This is the thing, is in 7 Remake,
it's the visual style of how they did it versus from the original, where it's more subtle. In the original, like, you don't know. Like, sure, you
don't know who later, it is. You don't know what's going on.
Who it was, yes, but it's not voice acted or anything like that. You have no idea who this weird. Like, you just, oh damn, Cloud didn't take his schizo pills. That's crazy, bro. And you don't know. But then in a remake, it's like, oh, hi Sephiroth. You want, like, I don't know, I got some coins for you. Like,
even when I guess the thing is that even by the time I beat the game, I still don't know what he wants. But I don't say that in a bad way. Yeah. I say that in a way of, like, you beat him, and at the very end, it's like you didn't even beat him because he's just there smiling at you. And you're like, well, I thought I just beat the fuck out of you. Why are you, like, and so I think that's why it's interesting to see a version of him that's a little bit more like he cracks jokes with Zack. You know what I mean? Like, it's just kind of very interesting to see that side to him.
It's funny because I like Crisis Core Sephiroth a little more than Remake Sephiroth, but that's a different topic.
Interesting. Don't worry, we'll have a Remake podcast at the end of the year because Rebirth is coming out in winter.
I don't really like how Sephiroth was handled that much in the remake. I feel like him and sometimes Aerith are really weird. And I'm like, why do you say the things that you do?
Well, we know why, but
I mean, yes, but like, I mean, now I know why. Like, after playing through the game again and understanding it more from like not a typical remake perspective.
yeah, it's not a remake.
Yeah, it's not a remake.
It's a sequel. It's a sequel.
Yeah,
but anyway, I don't want to get into remake right now. We've already talked about remake. We'll have a full freaking crazy podcast on remake at the end of the year. Before Rebirth comes out. So
quick thoughts for me for Zack. Best part of the game, that's duh. Zack, I like him a lot. He's kind of like to me, he fits like the typical hero character, and there's nothing wrong with that, of course. I love the kind of typical hero character. They're some of my favorites. And he has really infectious personality.
Oh yeah.
He's very easily likable, and I feel like that's why a lot of people prefer him over Cloud. And I mean, I don't really have much to say about him beyond like he's like your, what's the word I'm looking for here? I don't want to say like
Wait.
He's like your typical hero, like her heroic character, and he's the good guy that'll do the good thing, and that's like fine. Like there's so many great characters that are literally just that, but they're still great regardless. Like. Zack doesn't need to be this character that's super complicated and complex, because that's what we have Cloud for, right? And I think Cloud is a more interesting character as a result of that. That doesn't necessarily mean I think he's like normatively better. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It really depends, like, what's your taste in characters and what do you value in a character over certain other elements and all that other stuff.
I mean, Crisis Core wouldn't, like, if, I don't know, like, you're not going to replace Zack with Cloud in Crisis Core and have it be the same game.
No, it would be impossible for it to be the same game.
Just like you can't replace Final Fantasy VII with Zack instead of Cloud. Like, it's not even close to the same. They each have their own hero's journey go on. You know?
Exactly. Yeah.
No, yeah. I mean, the story of this game obviously inspired me to write What If Zack Survived, which is a thing, which was my first like series on YouTube. Those damn Square Enix employees took my idea for Final Fantasy VII.
Well, now
Remake.
you'll figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I was writing the script, and then like I played a remake, and I was like, oh my fucking god, what is going on here? Shit, man. But okay, how about I mean, Genesis, Cells, and Geel.
Shut up, and shut up.
Honestly, for some reason, when I played Reunion, I don't know if it's the voice acting or whatever, but certain cutscenes around Genesis actually hit for me. Like, toward the end of the game, when you see that Genesis was like a brilliant kid who made like apple juice and all this stuff, did all this stuff for his town, that he wanted to show it to Sephiroth, that he was influenced by Sephiroth in the same way that other characters were, like Cloud and Zack and stuff like that, and just wanted to be a hero. And due to that, he joined the soldier program, got corrupted by all the Genova shit, and then pretty much just lost his mind, just like any character, just like all of these soldiers, dude. Every single one of them.
That the biggest utility of characters like Genesis and Angeal is in showing how fucked Shinra is,
Mm-hmm.
and especially how fucked Hojo is.
Yeah,
Hojo. You want to talk about the villains of Final Fantasy?
that's the villain of FF7 right there. Is Hojo and all of Shinra, the Shinra executives and Hojo, all of that.
And so I think like beyond, because I would agree in saying that like those parts of Genesis's character I latched onto when he explored his backstory a tiny bit through in his room or whatever. And so like when you have to put him down. I speak about him like he's a dog, but like when you have to, put him out of his misery. It's kind of like, I'm not necessarily sad because I cared about him, but more that like when you learn more about what he went through, it is kind of like, goddamn, Shinra's really fucked. This world's really fucked up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
so it kind of fuels the central tragedy a little more.
That's how I felt about him too.
Yeah, he is a product of like his environment, like of what happened to him, and he is a product of Shinra, and it is he is an unfortunate character in terms of like how his past led him to where he ended up being by the end. You know,
yeah.
And I meme on Genesis a lot because all I think about when I hear his name is his stupid Loveless speeches, and I'm like, please, dear God, give me.
It's hilarious. It's hilarious, like the way that.
I mean, yes, it is funny, but at the same time, I'm just like, dude, please speak English. The words you're speaking sound like English, but are they really?
Yeah, it's like anything that he hears, he's just automatically relating it to something in Loveless.
Yeah.
Oh man, I don't know, man. I mean, oh Genesis, I don't mind Angeal.
He's whatever. Like to me,
yeah. It's just like what he means to Zack is what he means to me.
Yeah, he's more of a character that is there to further humanize Sephiroth, and two, further develop Zack as a character.
I think if it wasn't for Angeal, then I don't know if Zack would have held on to his principles as hard as he did. I think that's kind of the point of his character. It's like, hold on to your dreams and your honor of being a hero, right? Your dream of being a hero. And what does that mean to you? That's what matters the most. And I think that stuck with Zack so hard. And Angeal had such an influence on Zack that it mattered to me. Like, even the subtle things, like Angeal throwing the Buster Sword to his face, to Zack doing it at the end of the game before he went into his into his demise. I was like, oh man, that's good. I don't like a lot of the Angeal copy stuff on the dogs and like all that nonsense. Or what?
You remember when they ate his hair?
Oh my god, yeah.
No way.
It's just there's some really bizarre stuff that happens in the story where I'm like, it just kind of seems like they needed stuff to happen, and they're like, yeah, they're making like Genesis copies, and I'm like, yeah, because you need enemies to fight, I guess.
Yeah. The you just ate my hair shit is so funny. It's so funny. No way. He just ate my hair. And honestly, it just feels like it's moments like that that make Zack even more of a human, relatable in this fucked up like world of crazy characters.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, like Zack reacts in the same way that I would, where it's like it makes me feel okay that things are going on.
You get scenes where like sometimes characters are just spouting nonsense, like Angeal's talking about how he's a monster. Mm-hmm. He's talking about world domination, and Zack just says that's not even funny. Yeah, because he's like, "What the fuck are you talking about, dude? Just shut the fuck up!" Like he kind of radiates that energy of like, "What the fuck are you all talking about? You guys are weird."
Exactly. That's it. Just makes me appreciate Zack that much more.
And honestly, because you love Zack, it goes like my favorite part of the game is how it ends, of course, and that's kind of what makes like. It's kind of, I don't want to say that I love the game because the ending's really good, but like that's like a good 30% of the reason I still love the game is that it's one of the best endings in anything I've ever seen. It's impacted me from a young age. Like one of the first games I played on my PSP was a game where this really cool dude like is brutally murdered by a bunch of soldiers at the end, like. Yeah. In probably the most heartbreaking way imaginable, like, and yet he's just there, like, smiling through it all, and he gives even when he's giving the sword to Cloud, he's like, embrace your dreams and shit. Yeah, and it's just like going through this game again. I was met with a lot of things that I don't think aged particularly well. But that ending hit me as hard as it did back in like 2008 or whenever this game came out.
You know what else doesn't age particularly well?
Hmm?
Swiss cheese.
Oh my god, shut the fuck up, bro.
Oh, going to hell.
Funny joke about Zack getting shot a million times.
Oh, yeah, now I get it. That's funny.
I feel bad because every time I watch like Juice will be streaming, and he's like he'll talk about Zack. Just the other day, I quoted Zack and just put Swiss cheese as like the quote.
Yeah, as the person who said it.
As the quoter.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, no, the ending of this game really got me. Like, I've seen it before. The voice acting, which we'll get into the next segment or whatever, because we'll just get into our favorite moments now, right? The ending of this game is fantastic, in my opinion.
So, but actually, I don't mean to interrupt, but now that we're talking about the ending, and we've already talked about it a bit. So, I like the ending. I don't feel particularly strongly, I guess. I'm like, oh yeah, like, of course, I'm sad that Zack died, right?
Yeah.
Of course. And the way that it all played out, I'm like, okay, yeah, that's, tugs at my heartstrings. Good job, game. How do you guys feel about, Zack being alive for later?
We have a section for that.
Okay.
Remember?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have to hold everything. For
We don't. But I want to talk about the ending of the game first, about the before we get into.
Well, I think it's probably relevant to talk about whether or not it would still be meaningful to you, even if he is alive in the future.
It's the very next section, which is why I'm okay with holding it off, because we're at pretty much the end of the story section.
Okay, so we're on what our favorite moments are?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yes, it does go into, like, Zack being into Rebirth and stuff like that as well, and the ending of Remake. But, like, no, the ending of the game is super impactful for me, just because, I mean, I remember I brought it up a couple times, but just streaming it this one time, even seeing what's going to happen, and knowing exactly what's going to happen, and playing the original and how it plays out differently there with Zack just being shot in the face, essentially. His willingness to help other people out, to throw Cloud to the side and keep him safe and protect him, as soon, like, it's like the entire... right after you defeat Genesis to the very end is my favorite part of the game. Because just, like, Zack keeping his smile, like, giving them each a goddamn Benora white apple or whatever, taking a bite, like, yeah, we're all together, like, him trying to keep himself together is how I see that. Him just holding his principles, and then getting that letter from Aerith, from the dog, the NGL copy or whatever, who sends him there, and then I'm pretty much just, like, saying what happens, but I don't know, it just, like, it means so much to me, and it makes me, like, so emotional going through it.
With this ending is that, for me, it's less about that Zack died, and, like, oh, that's sad. It's, like, an element of it, I guess. But for me, it's about watching him stay true to his principles until the end, and it's kind of it's his character that makes that. Which is why, regardless of anything that could ever happen in the future, nothing could ever take away from the emotion that I'll feel in the moment. Because the emotion comes from Zack himself. It's not about him dying necessarily.
Yeah.
But the reason I love the ending, and will continue to always love the ending, is that watching him struggle throughout the game to stay true to his principles, even when everything around him is, like, crumbling, up until his very death, and he never gives up. It's just inspiring as shit. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
100%. And that's why I think I'm more okay with him being, quote-unquote, alive than maybe a lot of other people, too, because I feel very similarly.
Yeah.
But it's just, like, I don't know, that final moment when the DMW is, like, breaking, like, his brain is, like, failing him, and the only things that he can think of are, like, Aerith and the people that he's come to know and love, that he's held on to and tried to do his best for till to his last breath. The gameplay elements of him stumbling around trying to hit these last 3 soldiers and failing, and you having to go through that yourself.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my fucking god, dude. Like, you, from the moment Genesis died to the moment Zack died, it was just like keeping my my tears and I know
I did actually quite enjoy that part too, where you have control of Zack one last time, and it's when he's struggling to stay alive, and you're like trying to do everything you possibly can to keep him alive, but it's pointless. Just that element of making the player go through one last gameplay bit before what the inevitable happens is a powerful thing. And there are other games I think that did this great too, like Metal Gear Solid 3. I won't say what that entails, but for anyone that's played Metal Gear Solid 3, there is a part at the very end of the game where you have one last moment of control to do something, and it hits pretty hard in the game's ending.
And then just hearing Zack say, "Did I become a hero?" It's like, and seeing Aerith react to his death, because she obviously can communicate with the planet and whatnot, and whatever the rain means. Did I become a hero? Which is Zack's dream that he held onto from the moment he talked to director Lazard to the ending of the game. It's just like, damn, that hits, Did I become a hero? I fucking love that quote, because it's his hero's journey. I think they did such a great job with that.
Yeah.
So, all right. Other than that, my favorite moments have to do with like Angeal dying and Aerith comforting Zack while Y plays, like the acoustic version of Y, which also plays at the end of the game. That's also a great moment. And then all the funny moments.
Pretty much all of Zack's interactions with Aerith.
Yeah,
very nice.
I like it when Genesis trips Zack.
My favorite moment is when Sephiroth called Genesis a shithead. That totally is the dialogue that's in the game.
Oh yeah, that's what happens.
I'm surprised that they did it. That in the Mako reactor, like, yeah, man. I'm like, yeah, Sephiroth, you go, girl.
Yeah.
I like I said, I like when Sephiroth gets a little more casual. Like when he tells Zack he can let loose. It's just kind of cute. I don't know.
Oh yeah. When he's
Wait, for real? Yes, for real.
And also like the I know the part, and like when he tells him to go back to Midgard because he knows he wants to see Aerith and stuff as well. Yeah, that's such a nice moment. And seeing Sephiroth smile, it's like, oh, that warms my heart. Shit. Too bad he becomes a fucking maniac.
Too bad he kills Aerith.
Yeah, what the fuck, dude?
Don't worry, it'll be Tifa in the remake. It's fine.
Oh boy. I mean, maybe. Actually, yeah, that sets us up for
segue
into FF7 Rebirth. And obviously we're gonna have a full podcast on Remake. We've all played it, right? But like, I'm at least going to replay it before Rebirth comes out.
Yeah, going to replay it. Yeah, I have not played the Yuffie DLC, and I have not played in general just the integrated version of the game.
Have you played hard mode?
No, and I probably won't, because every person that's told me says that it's an awful experience, and I don't want to go through it.
That actually sounds like a skill issue. That's insane. Wow.
Every person I know
makes the game better.
Says that it's awful.
No,
so I probably won't do it.
They over-rely on items. No, it makes you actually interact with the game's mechanics.
I struggled enough with the game on normal. I don't want to go through hard.
I disagree more.
Well, it's going to be interesting when we get to the podcast, then, isn't it? I didn't struggle too much on normal. I did die to a few bosses a few times, but other than that, I was fine because I just got better at the game as I went. I am excited to go through it again on hard mode and playing actual intergrade, because even playing the first bombing mission, which I did on hard mode in 60 FPS on PS5 after playing the Yuffie DLC, it just felt so fucking good to play the game at a smoother frame rate. It just, everything looks better, everything feels better. Man, oh man, did they do a great job with that. So I'm excited to do that, and I'll be replaying it before Rebirth comes out, just so I have more context going into Rebirth to talk about it, obviously, for the podcast. But anyway, yeah, we were segueing into Zack in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So I think this is going to happen, personally. I don't think that they would be feeding us... Oh, shit. King. Oh, no. So you haven't played the Yuffie DLC?
No.
Have you seen the last cutscene?
Oh, yeah, I have.
Okay, cool. It doesn't matter.
I watched the... Is that the one where they, like... They're like hitchhiking or whatever. Like
the one after that.
Yeah, the one where Zack opens the door. Yeah, okay.
I watched those.
Okay. Cool. So I don't have to hold that back.
All right, so Aerith's dead. I can't believe that's well.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell is going on there, but I will say I do think that we're gonna play as Zack. I think that we might have like perspective shift back and forth. I think this is kind of why Crisis Core was remastered. I think this is why
has the DMW. I call it. Just saying.
DMW along with the Final Fantasy VII Remake combat system and whatever they're adding to it.
Yeah.
Going along with Zack's memories in the way that could be corrupted by the live stream, like it giving you new memories or like things that hasn't happened or whatever the fuck because of the fact that things have changed.
Yeah.
That's interesting to me.
Yeah, like it. So originally, if I may interrupt you,
go for it.
When I first played through Remake, and beat the game and all that, and I'm processing what's going on with Zack. And I'm going like, okay, it looks like Zack might be alive, but maybe he'll maybe he's reaching the point after he passes like Cloud and Aerith in like the very last cutscene, right? Like when Hollow like kicks in.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe like that's the scene right before he gets shot because it's like over a mountain on Midgar, and it looks like that's where they kind of were. Maybe so. I'm thinking maybe it'll still happen, and he just died a little later. But then why would they show us like the things that they did prior, like with Zack apparently defeating every Shinra guard and all that? But then we get stuff from Intergrade, and then the Rebirth trailer. We're like, okay, no, Zack's alive. Okay,
yeah,
he's just alive.
And for context, King, because I don't know if you've seen the original cutscene of how Zack dies, but like, it doesn't show him fighting like 10 million soldiers. It shows him being like absolutely exhausted on his journey, and then being shot by like 3 soldiers and dying. It's very like cold and quiet, and
it's very cold and brutal.
Yeah. So people were just thinking, oh, it's possible that Zack just dies
and he's also like carrying Cloud along too.
Yeah,
and then he notices like, oh shit, there's someone coming after us, and then he just gets gunned down by like 3 dudes.
Yeah. But yeah, now they showed what happens at the end of intermission, and it's like, oh no, Zack is somehow in some way alive. I don't.
Oh no, Zack's back in Midgar. He is alive. Like he is breathing.
But I think the whole theme of Remake is trying to set out, and Rebirth or whatever, all this stuff is to defy expectations. Like the writer's intent for Remake, as I went into it, you can look at any interviews. It's because they're sick of regular remakes and they just like wanted to put a new spin on things and completely defy expectations. Whatever you think you know, you don't. They know, but you don't.
I don't know, bro. RE4 Remake already doing that for me, so that's crazy. Like that's absolutely insane.
So,
yeah, and I think that's fucking cool.
Yeah,
it's unfortunate that it's not a thing for everybody, but I think even they knew that it's not a thing for everybody when they were making it. Mm-hmm. I think even they knew they were going to burn some bridges there. But that's, I guess that's the risk you take when you want to do something interesting like this, You're going to alienate a lot of people, but I think I'd fucking love it.
I mean, my issue with it is that it's called Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Yeah, I go back and forth, but I think that is yet another necessary thing. They kind of had to build up the expectation for it to be a remake in order to defy your expectations of it to begin with. So
yes, but for I've talked to a lot of people on both sides here, like people like who are totally fine with what it is, and then others that feel betrayed by it. And I see validity in both sides. But let's stay focused on Zack here for a moment.
Well, I mean, I think we're kind of going into that because to just finish the thought that I had was that obviously them defying expectations and whatnot,
yeah,
and how it's the artist's intent to do that. Whether or not you like it, that's a different story. That's a different story. We can go into the marketing of Remake when we get to the podcast of Remake, because that is a different topic, right? But they're continuing to do this through all of these cutscenes with Zack, I believe, because whatever they're setting up for Rebirth, they're setting it up to be like, you have no idea what the hell is going to happen in this game, which is what I was trying to say. So I don't know exactly what they're going to do with Zack, but I think Zack is going to be playable. I can give my guesses, and that there's going to be a perspective shift of, the crew already being in one place and Zack kind of following them,
and seeing something different.
Yeah, or like going to those places later than them and having to fight different challenges, stuff that kind of like relates more to Crisis Core, like maybe. Because you saw, like, the white feather in the Rebirth thing, so maybe Angeal is leading them somewhere, or we know that Genesis is still alive. Like, if you look at the end of Dirge of Cerberus, he was sleeping in some weird, like, bubble or something, because he was in Deep Ground, and Deep Ground, like, opened up in Dirge of Cerberus, which is a whole other can of worms in FF7 lore to go into, which we're not going to do right now. But we know that all these characters are still alive. Well, at least Angeal and whatever else we know that... I mean, sorry, at least Genesis. We know Angeal is kind of guiding him somewhere or whatever. Whatever they set up at the end of Intermission, I have no idea what's going on there. It almost makes me think that... I don't know if Zack is in the same space in the live stream...
I wanted to get into that,
as the rest of the party is, because what the hell are they crying over? Aerith isn't dead. What happened?
Is she?
Or is she in this weird other alternate dimension?
Exactly, yeah. Because I'm of the opinion that Zack that we're seeing is not in the same, I'm using air quotes here, universe as the crew is. I think he's in some weird alternative reality world. Like, I don't want to say timeline, but maybe it's timeline.
I don't know. Like, I mean, everything can be kind of. It's like the live stream is a.
Yeah, the live
can kind of explain everything. Yeah.
If Zack is in the same universe as Cloud and company, that means now there's a second Cloud also in that same universe. There would be two Clouds in the same universe. Because, Zack did come into Midgar with Cloud. We see that in the Rebirth trailer. He's still dragging Cloud along. So that's curious. Like, originally I was on the fence if I liked the whole idea of Zack being alive or not, because I'm thinking like, well, I mean, if he's alive, like, Zack needs to be dead for Cloud to undergo parts of his development later in the original Final Fantasy VII. Like, he has to be dead.
Yeah.
But now, or I'm seeing a bit more of where they're going with Zack. I'm going, okay, you know what? This has potential to be pretty interesting. I'm on board as of now to see where they're going to take Zack.
That's the thing is, like, I am curious to know what they'll do. And I'm pretty much, like, whether or not I end up liking it, I'm kind of just like, hey, go nuts, do what you're going to do. Because at the end of the day, you can't take from me what I got from Crisis Core anyway. So I want to see what you do. I'm just fucking curious. I want to see more of Zack, and I want to see what goes. I want to see what happens.
Well, that is true for Crisis Core. That isn't, at least for me, it's not true for the original Final Fantasy VII, because there might be things I'm just like, oh, I really don't like how they did that,
It's true for me for the Final Fantasy, the original as well. But that's my personal take.
I don't want to go too off topic, but I don't think there's anything a remake could do that could ruin the original for me.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Chapter 18? I don't know, bro.
Well, no, that's the whole point. Is like that. I agree with King K. I mean, you already know my take on this. ST is just like the original is always there. Yes, and I go back and forth on this too, where it's like there could have been a timeline where Remake was just an OG remake in the same style, and I also would have been happy with that. Cool, but my tastes are way more intrigued with whatever the hell Remake is happening, and it doesn't ruin the original for me because I can always play it. It's on every single platform. It holds up. It has its issues.
It's not a shield. It's not like I'm saying that you can't criticize the remake for making different choices.
Because I have.
Some of those choices, you can disagree with them, and that's fine. And it's not to say, like, because the original is always there, people can't complain about the new stuff.
Yeah.
It's more that, for me personally, whatever the remake's going to do, whether I end up liking it in the end or not, because they could totally take this in a stupid-ass direction. Like, they just could. But, like, whether or not that happens, it will never take away from the fact that the original is always there for me to experience still. So...
yeah, it's like if they made a Mother 3 remake and they fucking changed a bunch of stuff about it, or a Final Fantasy 7 or Final Fantasy 9 remake, those games would still be like my favorite games of all time. And they're just different experiences. It doesn't.
That's how I feel about Zack.
The issue that I have is that for a lot of people, like this Final Fantasy 7 remake will be like, their Final Fantasy. They might not even care about the original
and
game.
that is why I said what I said.
And why the remake might just it shouldn't replace the original, but for a lot of people it might. And the themes and messages of the original are different than what the remake is doing. Like the remake has you fighting fate, but fate had nothing to do with in the original.
And again, I don't want to go too off topic, but in that case, I honestly think, and this might be a little harsh, but that's probably on them. So I'm sorry, but I have to say that because if they really want to know the deal with the OG FF7, then they would play it.
Yeah, and that's what I would hope that they would do. I mean, the developers even encouraged people to play the original game.
Yeah, I mean, most of everyone
you can't get everybody to do that, And
no, I know that. I know.
I'm not talking to you specifically. I'm talking in like the second person right now.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, like generally, like you can't, like that's not a thing that there are going to be people that get lost in this shuffle, and that's unfortunate. But that's also on them.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, most people who I've seen start with a remake have gone back to experience the entire series. Like all of the OG FF7, Crisis Core, all of that stuff.
That's what I'm doing right now, basically. I took a little break from Final Fantasy, but like I'm still once I get done with like 5 and 6, I'm going right to 7 again, and I will finish it. Even if I think it drives off a cliff after Midgar, I will do it. I'll push through fucking gold saucer bullshit. I'll do it.
Spoilers, you returned back.
Yeah. So I do like the whole Square is trying to do something new with the term remake, right? I do appreciate that. And but there are still remakes out there today that are more in the traditional sense that are phenomenal, like RE2.
And that's the thing too, is that I think RE2, the remake, is one of my favorite games.
Yeah,
this is obviously not I think we can have it both ways, and either way is. I think what I'm trying to say basically is that either approach is valid in my eyes, as long as the end product.
I do agree with that 100%. 100%. There are just parts about Final Fantasy VII Remake, from chapter 1 all the way to 17. I'm like, damn, this is really good, But then we get to 18. I'm just like, what's going on?
To bring it back to Zack, how do you think? In what way do you think it could ruin what Zack has been established as?
Oh, when I say chapter 18, I'm mainly talking about how you fight fate and all this weird giant purple shit in the sky. I'm not, because I know the Zack stuff is in chapter 18.
Well, no, what I'm asking is in Rebirth, what do you think they could do that would
potentially hurt Zack.
Can I tell you what I think is going to happen?
Well, hang on. Before that,
Okay.
I don't think there's anything that they could do to ruin Zack himself. Let me make that clear. When I say that, certain things will be weird because Zack is alive, it doesn't necessarily, my words are getting tied.
Well, basically what I'm asking is what you think will happen, I guess.
Okay, well, from the very limited stuff that we know with Zack, I imagine... Well, okay, I think Aerith is dead in the universe Zack is in. I think Zack is in a different timeline or universe. He's not in the same realm as Cloud, Barrett, Aerith, Tifa, etc., etc. He's not in the same realm. He's in something else. Like the live stream did something. Something happened after the crew defeated the Arbiters of Fate. And because of that, now Zack lived. He pulled through, barely. And now because of this, there was a butterfly effect. Zack's alive. Okay, that's not supposed to happen. So butterfly effect happens. Something happened to Aerith now. She's not in the church. The flowers are wilted, which, the symbolism with Aerith and flowers, not to
those
shows
flowers specifically, the yellow lilies.
Yeah, like those flowers specifically in the church, they are wilted. So something that tells me something happened to Aerith in whatever universe Zack is in, whether she's dead or not. Obviously, I don't know. I'm speculating that yes, she's dead here. So I think Zack is going to go on his own little adventure, his own side adventure that we will periodically take control of him for to see what he's doing, and he'll make his own little party. Maybe we'll have Kunsel, right? Because he should still be there chilling. Kunsel shouldn't have really changed, right?
Cloud, Kunsel. Yeah, I mean, Kunsel was mailing him at the end of Crisis Core, I don't care what you did or whatever, you're my buddy. I relate a lot to Kunsel, actually. He is super creepy, but
think about this too. In this perspective of where Zack is, it's not long after that stuff. It's not long after he and Cloud escape from Shinra Manor.
Yeah.
This would be still some time before the events of Final Fantasy VII proper actually began.
Yeah.
So
it's only a week or whatever in the remake
it's
timeline.
not like a huge gap of time.
Yeah.
But, I think ultimately Zack is going to make his own little party or something. Maybe not. Maybe he just goes solo. I don't know. But I think something's going to happen where Zack will eventually end up in the timeline and or universe where the main party is. And, then stuff will happen from there. I think Zack is going to become a mainstay player throughout the rest of this project, because how they're building him up and the mystery that's around him now, there's no way that they're not going to. There's no way that we're not going to have him at the party at some point, I think.
Yeah.
How that will impact Zack's character, it might impact him negatively, depending how they take and handle his character, because who knows? Maybe they'll do something that it's well, that's not how Zack would go, I don't know. But my main concern about Zack being alive and he meets with current Cloud is how is that going to impact Cloud's development and growth as a character from what we know of Cloud to be.
Yeah, because his identity is very tied to him not knowing who the hell he is, and him
not knowing who Zack was.
Knowing, but the Genova cells within... I'm going to bring in lore stuff from the Ultimanias and stuff, but the Genova cells within him, if you notice, what's Genova's main power?
Mind, I don't want to say possession, but I guess possession is kind of accurate.
And shapeshifting. Yeah. Right. So what do you think is going on in Cloud's mind? Why do you think he's so able to take on the identity that isn't his? Is because of the Genova cells within him. So what's going to happen when he sees Zack, and everything in his mind is blocking out Zack currently in the
Yeah.
original Final Fantasy
And
VII and
which-
remake. It is scary. What the hell is going on? You know?
Yeah, which the remake is still doing, because in that scene where Cloud and Aerith are at the little park, and Cloud's like, "Oh, what's his name? I might know him," and Aerith clearly says Zack, but we're then shifted into Cloud's perspective, and his ears start ringing. His mind starts going crazy at the mention of Zack's name.
Yeah. His brain won't allow him to know what that is, because it would completely break his identity as it does in Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah. So to get into what I think is going to happen, and I don't know if I really think this, but because I wrote it into my, I don't even know if it's a hope, but it's because I wrote it into my "What if Zack survived" script that I'm like, well, Square Enix, I mean, they took my ideas, right? So not like I took the characters to write or anything. I think what's going to happen is, yes, Zack is probably in a different space in the live stream than the rest of the party. I'm not entirely sure on that. I could be wrong. I just don't know. Because if anything, it could be like that he's just like behind. I don't who the hell knows, right? So I don't know the thing is, I don't know what's going to happen with Cloud is my biggest thing. Like the Cloud that Zack carried with him, no idea what's going to happen with him. But I think that Zack is going to approach these areas that the party is going to on his own journey and fight different things along the way. And he's going to get like remnants that Aerith was there and that Cloud is there, and he's going to be super confused, just like he is throughout all of Crisis Core. So you're still going to have that dynamic going through his adventure. And then I think you're going to get to Aerith's death. And I think Zack is going to see it. I think if Zack sees the Cloud, or if Cloud sees the Zack that's there, then his identity is going to break there. And instead of Sephiroth coming down to kill Aerith, I think Cloud might. And I think the final boss of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is Cloud as Zack. And then while they're fighting, I think Sephiroth's gonna come down and fucking kill Aerith anyway. Even if Zack wins.
That would be messed up.
That would be wild.
Yeah. So
that's what I think might happen.
I was gonna say, I have also considered the possibility that Zack is in fact in the same timeline, and simply what we're seeing in the church when he opens the doors, like all the people there crying, is just, I guess, the aftermath of, was it when the Sector 7 plate fell, right?
Yeah.
And people
that could be
migrated to the church just to take refuge, and they're mourning over like the homes and people that they lost.
Yeah, and Zack's just like, what the hell is going on? Because he missed all that. He was out.
He's like, what the hell's going on? Where's Aerith?
Yeah.
But then there's also the wilted flowers. I'm like, well, are the flowers wilting because Aerith's
not there to take care of them?
Yeah, is it because they're no longer there? Or is it more symbolism? Like, it's
because they're still blooming in Advent Children, but that Aerith is there to take care of them in spirit through the live stream. Currently, she's not there to do that at all. So they just wilting because she's not there to actually take care of them, and she was the only one who did so. And Zack seeing those is a symbolism, or like it tells him that like Aerith is not here, and the time that they spent together, like taking care of these flowers and building this flower wagon and blah blah blah, like she's off doing something else. But what happened with Zack in that timeline? What happened with Cloud? Where's Cloud?
At the same time. So if we're going to assume that Zack is now in like the same universe and time frame as the main party, that did he just pop back into existence? Because in this universe, he should be dead. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, but isn't that the whole thing that the live stream was trying to do, or what Minerva is trying to do, right? If we want to go by that, with whatever Crisis Core lore is giving us, is to... The only reason why the planet was holding on to what it had was because the timeline that it knew was one that it can ensure its own survival for, which is why it has its own defense mechanisms for keeping things the way that it is, and that's why you fight... The weapons, and also the Arbiter of Fate, which is, spoilers, a weapon. It's just called something different. It looks exactly like all the other weapons, just a big purple thing. is another planet's defense mechanism, right? So
Well,
what if
that is
Zack?
it. Well, I never even thought of that, but it is
Yeah.
like the weapons.
Yeah, it's very much like the weapons.
I think it is just supposed to be another defense mechanism of the planet. So what is the planet's very last move that it did? Zack lived.
Yeah.
I mean, just a theory, a game theory.
Yeah, it's like that. I see what you're saying with that. Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't consider that. Because what I'm thinking about it is like why I think Zack might be in a different timeline is because, you know, from where we are right now, timeline wise with the main party, Zack has been dead for a while. Right. So now he's just here. That's like, did the live stream just rematerialize him?
Well, I don't think it rematerialized him. Like, I think whatever that like singularity point was kind of brought all the time, whatever was happening all over the place.
So you think that the past and the present like merged?
Yeah,
and that's why Zack could possibly be in the present now, despite technically coming from the past.
Yeah, I think whatever that's why it's called singularity, right? That's why it sticks out in my head of like, I think that whatever happened in that moment with the explosion. That's what Chapter 18
was called, right?
Yeah.
Was Chapter 18 called Singularity?
I don't know, but I know the final place that they were, or there was some place called Singularity that you go into. I think the moment that like the Arbiters of Fate dispersed and like you saw all of them around like where Zack was in that moment right there was enough to tell me that like everything kind of converged into one thing now. The planet doesn't even know what's going to happen, and this is the new timeline moving forward. Anything that happened before kind of converged into one. That's I mean, singularity, right? I mean,
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I could be completely wrong on that, but that's just my theory on it.
I mean, even if you are, I get where you're coming from, and that makes sense. In this weird, like, it makes as much sense as this wacky shit can.
Yeah, whatever wacky nonsense is happening in these games.
It's like, you know, you hear the most contrived thing, you're like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it could happen. You don't know at this point, right?
But, ultimately, I'm curious. I went from being, like, really off-putted by Zack being alive now to actually genuinely curious to what they're going to do with him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was, I mean, while I was playing Remake, you know, like, as you saw, I had a lot of problems with the way that they handled some of the Arbiters of Fate and stuff. Because it seems like a little inconsistent with what happens and what doesn't. But overall, I am excited about Rebirth. And I'm just excited about where they take Zack and the rest of the cast, because
I hope I get to keep all my stuff. You know how many Materia I got maxed out?
True. I just think that it's going to elevate things to the next level for me, and doesn't take away anything that I experienced in the OG FF7 or Crisis Core or anything else. So
yeah, I mean, again, really, my main issues with Remake come from like the climax of the game. And that doesn't include Zack. Like, Zack is one of the things that's actually exempt from it now, because I'm genuinely curious about where the story is going to go. Depending where it goes, my opinion might change. But at this moment, I'm like, okay, you know, I'm willing to see where Scarboy ends up here.
Scarboy.
Yeah, well, he has the classical X-shaped scar.
Yeah. King, what do you think is going to happen with Zack? Just because we've given our two.
Well, again,
ideas.
I have significantly less context. To be honest with you, I'm like not even really sure what's happening in Remake sometimes. In my one playthrough that I played of it, but I think that my best guess is that they're gonna run a parallel, because like, it seems to me like they're gonna do a lot of swapping around between Zack being like a semi-protagonist doing his own thing, and then the rest of the party go off and do. It almost seems like Zack will kind of be like a siphon for a lot of the new shit. Not to say that they're not going to do new shit with Cloud, but seeing as they're going to Calm or wherever they're going, wherever that place is called.
Yeah, it's Calm.
Yep, Calm.
It seems like they're going to more or less follow a similar path as the original. with like some changes, obviously. But like maybe Zack will be kind of the like significantly new shit, obviously, because he's alive. But like
Yeah.
Maybe there'll be like a contrast there, and then they'll like. I think that it's pretty safe to say that those two stories will converge at the end, and that'll be the climax of the game.
Yeah. I don't know if it's necessarily like two different timelines, but I totally agree with you in the switching perspectives and being almost a siphon for a lot of the new stuff, because there's a lot more that happens in the Final Fantasy story that we don't even see in the OG that Cloud and his crew don't tackle, that like the expanded lore brings into us. And what better character and what better character would there be to tackle that than Zack, with the way that he tackled what happened in Crisis Core, right? And that dynamic between him and a lot of the crazy, wacky shit. And then
if you're right about them converging and eventually meeting at for the Forbidden City,
Forgotten Capital,
then that would if that goes into part 3, then at that point Zack would probably just be a party member.
Mm-hmm.
Like Part 2 or Rebirth may very well have, like, we get some... I imagine we're going to have more chapters just with Cloud and the party than with Zack. But we'll have, like, a couple of chapters where we play as Zack and we get what he's doing and all his unique gameplay stuff. And then at the end of the game, he finally converges with the main party. That's where the game ends. And then the third part, Zack's just a member of the party.
Because, like, how messed up would it be if you play as Zack and he still has this DMW mechanic and all of the memories and stuff that he had, like, they don't work the same anymore.
Yeah, they're like broken
because of the live stream, like, completely switching up things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's a lot of potential.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
They might even give Zack like some I don't want to say amnesia, but like maybe fractured memories. Like he doesn't remember things as clearly as he should. And the DMW will reflect that.
Or in the same way that, like, because the way that I see the DMW affecting Zack, like those true memories hitting him, is the same way that I saw the live stream in the Arbiter of Fate giving memories to Cloud and crew when they shouldn't have had them at the end of Remake.
Yeah, like Cloud seeing visions of Aerith's death. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like, what is going to appear through that slot machine now, you know?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So other than that very interesting section, I only really have to say a couple things about like the voice acting and music of the game just to close it off. I think as closing statements and whatnot, like I think the game is definitely worth playing, and I think if you're going to play it, you should probably get it on. Probably try Steam. No one has a Steam Deck. I don't know. Just get the game and enjoy it. I think it's actually a really, really fun experience and much better than the original game. I think that we can kind of all attest to that, and we've praised it and both criticized and praised it equally. So definitely go experience that if you like Final Fantasy VII. Just because we never really touched on it, the voice acting, the music. I like the remixes of the music and stuff. Overall, though, I feel like some of it does get a little repetitive. Obviously, going through the side stories and whatnot. Mm-hmm. I feel
like there's a little too much. Like I love rock.
Mm-hmm.
It's not my favorite genre, but I feel like there's a little too much of it sometimes. Because when I think of Final Fantasy VII, I don't think of rock music.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they did give a lot of like rock remixes and stuff in Remake too, but yeah, you're right. I mean, I kind of do because like Battle 2 has like guitar in it, even though it's like, weird sound font stuff.
But guitar doesn't automatically mean rock.
No, yeah, you're right. It's just, I mean, it was electric guitar and like hard drums and stuff. But no, I do agree with you.
Price of Freedom still hits, and that's all I cared about going in.
So. Price of Freedom, why? Like the ending song and its instrumental version when Angeal dies and Zack is crying in the church. Those are my two favorite songs. I love when Y plays at the end. Such a nice song. Very emotional stuff. I think a lot of the music that plays during the battles and stuff, I really like the OG remixes a lot more than I do the new stuff, because it just gets... The OG stuff plays a lot less, even though it's remixed. The Nibelheim is a remix of the OG song. Sounds really nice. But I don't know. like the
yeah.
Like I'm like, all right, like I've heard this song about 500 times now. Can we switch up to a different one? And it's like, and I'm like, all right, I've heard this one another 500 times as well. Like I don't know, they could have added a little.
Yeah, it's always
bit
like
more
the same
variety.
two battle songs.
Yeah, it's like okay. But it's not to say that I don't like it. I just think it's rather repetitive. Not only does it play a lot in the actual game, but the music itself is also very repetitive. It's that kind of game music that just plays one pattern and then builds on itself for a while, like Section A, but that Section A has like 3 different levels, and then Section B plays, and then it's back to Section A for like those 3 different levels of instruments building on top of each other. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. Like a little boring, but whatever. I'm not really paying too much attention to it. So it just doesn't hype me up as much as when I hear the FF7 battle theme and like some of the other themes that they have in the game. And then I guess for voice acting, I love the original voice cast for this game for the most part. Rick Gomez as Zack, the original Rick Gomez as Zack, fantastic. All right, like it just so many moments elevated by Rick Gomez, right?
I feel bad for the new voice actor because I like him, but it is clear to me that he is having trouble matching Rick's energy in a lot of these lines, and I don't know, man. It's just unfair to expect anybody to come in and because I just love the original lines so much that it's kind of, I don't think anybody could come in and just do it in a way that I would prefer.
Yeah,
I just think
like,
it's kind of like it's just, I don't know.
I
really wish there was an option at least to have original voices, because I know they want to make it
remake.
like coherent with the remake. I get it.
Yeah.
But it's just a shame that like I don't even think the new voice actor does a bad job delivering the classic lines or anything, but I don't know. I think it's the original experience is sacred to me in that sense, and I guess like I said, I'll always have the original, so it's not like you're taking anything away from me, but it is kind of like it is noticeable sometimes that I think he excels in some of the more slower paced scenes. And I think that he's going to do a good job in Rebirth with his own original material. But
yeah,
sometimes when he's trying to do the older lines, I don't know. It just didn't work for me 100% of the time.
I think it was that Rick Gomes had a way to take the goofy dialogue he was given and just, take a spin on it that was endearing.
Yeah.
Not that I forget the new actor's name, which I really like his performance as Zack. I do. But I think that, namely with Rick Gomes and George Newborn.
His name is
as
Caleb
Zack.
Pierce.
Huh?
Caleb Pierce. Caleb Pierce
Oh,
is his name.
Caleb. I just think that with Rick Gomes and George Newborn as Sephiroth, like those two specifically are just really distinct in their roles with their characters. Like Corey something, that's Cloud's new voice actor, right?
Cloud's new voice actor is I like him like 1,000 times more.
I like him a lot.
His scream at the ending of this game. Oh man.
No
scream.
Disrespect to Steve Burton. Absolutely no disrespect to him. But yeah, Corey, I don't know his last name, but I believe his name is Corey something, but I'm terrible.
Oh yeah, Corey something.
Yeah, yeah. But he just does an amazing job as Cloud. All the remake actors do a great
Cody
job.
Christian.
Oh, it was Cody, not even Corey. Shit.
It's all right. I'll let him know that you misspelled the
Yeah, thank you. Cody
I have
Christian
him on speed dial.
He does a phenomenal job. Like, I think all the actors do. Even Zack does a great job, but there's just something about Rick Gomes that he really did turn Zack into his own.
It's kind of hard for me to separate him from the character of Zack in some ways because I experienced
hey, there's
that,
one cutscene where you can hear his voice. So
yeah, he actually he appears like when he's talking to Cisne as they're running away from
Why
Shinra,
did you come here?
I'm like, huh?
Yeah,
like it's
funny.
even louder than the original voice actor too. Like the balancing is off. I remember streaming it and I was like,
you were like, what? And then I typed the chat. I'm like, yeah, you heard that right.
yeah.
You didn't mishear that.
It's like, oh, what the heck? Is this my mind playing tricks on me, Genova? No, but I think that the new voice actor for Zack does a great job because it actually sounds more like the Japanese voice actor, and that's not like, great in itself. But I believe that their intent for what Zack should be as a character is played well by the new voice actor. Even if it's like slightly more like not as endearing or whatever like that. I don't think
that's certainly true,
yeah.
Well, I think it's just how they want to
portray the character in that way. And I agree with some of the stuff that you said where like I think it's a little bit weaker at the start, right? Some of the old lines he doesn't necessarily say them as well. I think the one that I dislike the most is like the come and get it, like the final scenes, right?
Come and get it, yeah.
Yeah, it just like I really like the original voice actor Rick Gomez over the new one and scenes like that, but there are a lot of places where I'm like, yeah, this is still good. Like,
because the vast majority of dialogue is not as memorable as like that's not even funny, man, or like because obviously those scenes are not quite as punchy to me, but like the vast majority of the runtime, like he's doing a good job, and I am excited to see his work in Rebirth.
He also has more lines because everything is voiced in this game, which is actually we didn't even bring it up at the version differences, but everything, at least I don't think we did, everything is voice acted in this game. Every single character, all the side missions that Zack has to talk in, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So, And
like at the end of the day, we're all going to have to get used to him, even if you don't like him. So,
yeah.
He's going to be picking around.
If you don't like it, play it in Japanese.
That's another option.
That is true, yeah. Can always do that.
And then, if you like the Japanese voice actor...
Yeah, I mean, I typically, when I played FFVII Remake, I played it in Japanese. I mean, I played it in both languages, but I did do a full playthrough of it in Japanese as well.
When I play hard mode, I'm playing it in Japanese.
I don't know if I can do that, because, there's, discussions around the voice cast and stuff. I think the voice cast of Remake is one of my favorite voice casts ever.
Oh, yeah, no, English, and they're in Reunion as well, and, I just want to give credit to the other characters real quick, as well as, I think Brianna White does a great job as Aerith. I think the new Sephiroth voice actor is still great. I think George Newbern did a great job too, but I also do like the new one.
I like both of them. I like both of the Sephiroths. I think I am in a unique position where I prefer the new one. I know that's not necessarily a popular take, but I like them both.
Yeah, it's also... It's one of those things where I like them both, but like the same thing that I said with Zack, right? It's like some lines I just hear George Newbern saying, George Newbern saying than the new voice actor. Not that the new one doesn't do a great job, but still, it's I can't get that out of my head. I don't feel that way on any of the lines with Cloud. None of them.
No, Cloud is fucking awesome.
He's just perfect.
Also, I like the Angel and Genesis voice actors. I think that the way that they say their lines...
I saw some mumblings about Genesis in particular, but I didn't mind him. I thought he was good.
Yeah, I liked Genesis' voice actor in this game.
I mean, maybe it's just... he's not always saying the most interesting stuff, but I thought his voice was good.
Right, yeah. He looks nice, he has a nice voice, for sure. But then everything that comes out of his mouth, it's like... Zip. But yeah, so overall I think the voice acting is fantastic. There are a few quirks. I remember in one of them just talking to someone, they have a blue car in in Midgar or something, and they're like, yeah, this baby goes up to 140 mph, and I'm like, who what?
Are you a human being, sir?
Are you an android? Who says mph and not miles per hour? That's the weirdest translation thing that they didn't cover in voice acting I've ever seen. 140 mph. But the game does have little quirks like that. Yuffie's voice actress, I can't say I'm the biggest fan of, but it's also trying to portray her as being younger, so I don't know. I like her. I think
y'all find like a 7-year-old girl annoying at this point. Like, just like, yeah, please.
I think it
go
was
away.
Yeah, because like I really like her voice acting in Intermission. So I think it's just the fact
think it's
that
just that she's significantly younger.
Yeah, and that her lines repeat a lot in the side missions. Like you're always gonna make her like, or the fact that she's like, mission failed. Like you have to hear that like 20 times, and I'm like, okay,
maybe you, sir, but I believe I'm cultured. I just press start, down, and cross, and I didn't have to hear it.
Yeah, but I'm trying to. Okay, I was streaming it, and I was trying to like listen to like, is there going to be something different this time? Is there something new that these characters are saying? No. And sometimes there would be, sometimes there wouldn't be. You know. But yeah, I guess that's the only
best part about the Yuffie side content was like and only the first time it happens where she tries to pull the save thing on you. On Zack.
Yeah.
I'm like that Captain America meme where I'm like, I understood that reference.
Yeah, there's a reference to the original game where like there's a save. They're like breaking the fourth wall, and Yuffie's like, "Hey, aren't you gonna go save the game?"
And Zack's like, "Oh yeah, I haven't seen my progress in a while." Yeah.
Just so Yuffie can like steal the materia away from her while away from him while he's saving.
Because I'm not sure if you got Yuffie in the original game, King K.
No.
But if you find her in the forest, she's like knocked out on the ground, and there's also a save point on screen. If you go to that save point first before talking to her, she robs you and runs off.
Yeah,
which is what that little cutscene was trying to make reference to.
And overall, the game has a lot of references to the original game, a lot of NPCs that you talk to throughout the game that are telling you about events that might be happening over in the world that they're suspecting, about Shinra, about, like, Avalanche, about, you know, whatever Before Crisis reference stuff. Like, there's just a lot of world building in Crisis Core through talking to the NPCs and having that all be voiced and given to players who are just entering the Final Fantasy VII universe now it's really nice to see. So I highly recommend Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core Reunion. I think that I don't have anything else to say on the game. Do you guys have anything that you'd like to close with, or?
You know, the game hasn't aged gracefully, but it still stuck the landing and it made me cry again, so.
Yeah,
it was worthwhile to go back and experience that again before going through probably the original and then the remake again.
How about UST?
Well, I was thinking about RE4 Remake. What? I mean, Crisis Core. It's the game with the crises at the core. It's good. Play it. If you liked Remake's gameplay, you'll probably love the gameplay here. Story, shrug, maybe you'll really like it. Maybe you'll think, why are these people, are these people? Why are these things saying the words that they are? Zack's cool, though. And then, you'll probably enjoy the gameplay.
Yes. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for watching or listening. Subscribe if you haven't already. And, hey, you look nice today. I'll catch you guys on next episode where we'll be covering Sonic Frontiers. See you later.